Chapter 1920. Weakness. Chun Xiang interrupted from the side. Our team has so many weaknesses. Isn't it normal for others to see through them? Indeed, relatively speaking, other than a few strong experts, the rest of the motley crew were all weaknesses. It was a miracle that such a team with so many weaknesses could enter the finals. It's different this time. This time, the biggest weakness was seen through. As Wu Ji spoke, he turned around and his gaze landed on Wang Yu. Hey, why are you looking at me? Wang Yu's face darkened. You can't be saying that I'm the biggest weakness, right? That's right. Wu Ji nodded. It's you. F*CK F*CK. Seeing how arrogant Wu Ji was, everyone in the motley crew had goosebumps. They panicked and said, Wu Ji, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. If it wasn't for Old Cow, we would have died a long time ago. He's our strength, how can he be our weakness? It's precisely because Old Cow is our biggest strength that he has become our weakness. Wu Ji said, everyone, think about it. If it wasn't for Old Cow, what would our team do? Do you even need to ask? Everyone said, let alone the finals, we probably wouldn't even be able to win the domestic competition. So, if he was targeted by our opponents, what do you think our chances of winning are? Wu Ji asked again. Hearing Wu Ji's words, everyone was stunned and speechless. Wu Ji was right. At this moment, the motley crew had such a record. Although everyone's hard work was inseparable, in all fairness, everyone's tactics and battles revolved around Wang Yu. If it wasn't for Wang Yu, no matter how exquisite Wu Ji's tactics were, with the absolute difference in strength, they wouldn't be a match for pro-level experts. In other words, without Wang Yu, the motley crew had no hope of winning. So, once Wang Yu, the core, was targeted, he became their biggest weakness. With Old Cow's strength, he won't be targeted so easily. After a long time, everyone said with some luck. Obviously, yes. Wu Ji said with a serious face, they have already mastered the basic methods to deal with Old Cow. Didn't Old Cow get tricked in the second match? Don't forget, they are the home team in the next match. Hearing Wu Ji's words, the lively atmosphere in the lounge immediately quietened down. The Templar battle team had many unique people. No matter how strong Wang Yu was, he would not be able to escape the system's rules. If they really entered the second round, the opponent would still choose a large map, and then throw Wang Yu to the edge of the map. The opponent would not even need to face Wang Yu head-on. After all, this was a competition, not a dead-end offline. The opponent only needed to get as many points as possible within the allotted time, and there was no need to be so ruthless. Is there no way to deal with it? Mu Zixian asked with a frown. As the leader of the motley crew, although Mu Zixian did not understand the competition, she could not participate in the battle with Wang Yu and the others. Seeing the usually optimistic Wang Yu and the others so pessimistic, she could not help but worry. That depends on the limits of Old Cow's strength, Wu Ji asked after thinking for a while. Old Cow, tell me the truth, how many of these guys can you fight? It's hard to say. Wang Yu shook his head and said, if they are normal players, it doesn't matter how many of them come. But the people in the Templar battle team are all top-notch experts. Even I can't say that I can fight 10 of them alone. Wang Yu's words were not to boost the morale of others. What was a professional expert? Professional experts had to go through the most rigorous training to maximize their own attributes and class to the highest possible level. No matter how strong Wang Yu was, rebirth was still a game. Under the restrictions of attributes, there was a limit to Wang Yu's strength. If Wang Yu was the limit of the game, then the top-notch experts were the people who were closest to the limit. They were the ceiling of the average player. If there were no restrictions on attributes, with Wang Yu's skills, it would not be a problem for him to fight 10 of them alone. But under the restrictions of the system, even if Wang Yu was stronger than his opponents, there was still a limit. Wang Yu was a practical person. In this kind of situation, he would not exaggerate his strength. Of course. Then Wang Yu said, but if it's possible, I also want to challenge my limits and see how many of them I can fight. Then I'll have to trouble you. Wu Ji patted Wang Yu's shoulder and said, when the time comes, we will try our best to help you get rid of some of your opponents. After saying that, Wu Ji turned to the silent Baiming Yu and said, Old Cow is the core of the competition. You are the key to the competition. You must remember the task I gave you. Got it. Baiming Yu nodded with certainty. Time ticked by, and soon the 10-minute break was over. Both teams returned to the game. At this moment, the motley crew no longer had their usual cheeky smiles on their faces. Instead, they had a very serious expression. This group of people had participated in many competitions since the start of the domestic professional league. Although their strength was uneven, with Wu Ji's commanding ability and Wang Yu's strong strength, everyone had always been full of confidence. They were very calm and did not feel the slightest bit of pressure. But this time, their opponents made them feel an unprecedented sense of crisis. It must be known that Wang Yu and Wu Ji were the two pillars in the hearts of the motley crew. As long as one of them was guaranteed to hold out, everyone could be full of confidence. But now, even the always invincible Wang Yu could not guarantee victory. Even the always strategizing Wu Ji did not dare to easily predict the outcome. The danger of this battle could be imagined. Perhaps the motley crew's footsteps would stop here. Perhaps for many people, being able to enter the top 3 in their first competition was already a very strong achievement. But for the motley crew, a group of perfectionists, being in the top 3 was not a glory. Moreover, other than to place one's pride, the age of the motley crew was not young. Not to mention Chun Xiang, an old dog in his 30s, even Wang Yu was already over 26 years old. Although he was in the prime of his life, he had passed the golden age of esport. It was very likely that this competition would be the last competition for these old fellows of the motley crew. How could they only enter the top 3 in the final competition? The motley crew's goal had never been this. Their goal was always to be the champion. No matter who their opponent was, being the champion was their ultimate goal. Under the system's notification, the third match officially began. The captain of the Templar team, the Templar Apostle, stood up and began to choose the map. The big screen in the arena flashed past the maps one by one. Finally, the Templar Apostle's finger stopped at a desolate map, gravel forest. Chapter 1921. As the Templar Apostles finished choosing their maps, the scene in the arena began to change. The originally lush and dark forest instantly turned into a boundless Gobi desert. The Gobi desert was full of gravel and all kinds of strange rock. As the name of the map described, it was the gravel forest. A white light flashed, and both teams appeared on the arena. The audience was immediately on edge. This battle would determine the fate of both teams. It was destined to be a battle of reputation. As soon as they entered the arena, both teams opened up their formation. Everyone was ready to fight, ready to go. The countdown ended and the match began. The Templar battle team was the first to attack. Just as Wu Ji expected, the first target of the Templar battle team was none other than the core of the motley battle team, Wang Yu. Wang Yu raised his staff and cast the gravitational spell along with Wang Yu. The power of the gravitational spell depended on the number of objects that could be manipulated in the environment. The terrain of the dark forest was made of wood, but Lok Bai's gravitational spell could still exert great power, let alone the Gobi desert that was full of gravel. The first commander of the Templar battle team, Lok Bai, was known as a world-class tactician. He knew the principle of using one's strength to attack the enemy's weakness. Since the beginning of the match, Lok Bai had placed the focus of the battle on the last match. Naturally, the last match was also meticulously planned. As everyone's main target was Wang Yu, the core of the battle strategy was the capture the bull plan. The map was also specially designed for this plan. Whoosh! Under Lok Bai's control, countless gravel flew into the air. For a moment, the motley battle team was covered by the densely packed gravel. Collect! Locke Bai put his hands together, and the gravel fell from the sky towards Wang Yu and the motley battle team around him. The motley battle team reacted quickly. Seeing the falling gravel, the motley battle team quickly gathered into a group. At this time, Yin Lao Air's body flashed with a red light, and he turned into a 4 to 5 meters tall giant. The shield in his hand swayed in the wind and became incomparably huge. He raised his shield and protected the motley crew under it. However, at this moment, the air around the ragtag team distorted, and 2 assassins appeared, one on the left and one on the right. Wielding daggers with both hands, they used instant prison kill to stab at Mingdu and Chun Xiang's lower back. Azura Instant Hellish Annihilation was an assassin's exclusive ultimate move. It had the advantage of being able to activate quickly and having a short cooldown. Moreover, unlike the flashy skills of other classes, Instant Prison Kill only had one attack. Although it looked no different from a backstab, its damage was the highest among all the skills of any class. It was an instantaneous burst damage. There was no need to doubt the damage output of these 2 assassins for them to appear on this stage. Not good dodge. The 2's target was not Wang Yu. By the time Wang Yu sensed the 2's presence, the 2's blades had already pierced Mingdu and Chun Xiang's back. Pu. Everyone only saw 2 flashes of light. Mingdu and Chun Xiang did not have time to dodge and were sent out of the arena by 1 person and 1 saber each. F***CKU. 2 assassins dared to rush the formation. The arrogance of their opponents had exceeded the limits of the ragtag team's tolerance. As a magician, Mingdu was naturally the closest to those who could protect him. Seeing that Mingdu was killed, evildoers Run Wild shouted and slapped the head of the assassin who tried to assassinate Mingdu, killing him in 1 hit. When the other assassin saw this, he turned around and was about to escape. Wang Yu leaped forward and stomped the assassin to death with a thunder stomp. Thud! However, the moment Wang Yu stomped the assassin to death, he suddenly heard a crisp sound under his feet. Wang Yu looked down and saw that there was a trap under his feet. Humph! A sinister smile appeared on Locke's face when he saw the scene before him. Magicians were AoE damage dealers, while warlocks were AoE crowd control. These 2 classes were the most terrifying existences in team battles. Among the ragtag team, Wang Yu was the one who gave Locke the most trouble. However, Wang Yu was not as useful as these 2 classes in team battles. Locke knew that Wuji would definitely think that his target was Wang Yu, so he made a preemptive strike and directly killed the 2 core members of the ragtag team. The lives of the 2 assassins were not important to Wang Yu. After all, although assassins were invincible in one-on-one battles, they were not very useful in team battles. Being able to kill the 2 core members of the ragtag team was already a worthy death. Moreover, the second assassin had placed a trap under Wang Yu's feet before he died. Jeff! The trap's binding time was more than 3 seconds. Seeing that Wang Yu was bound, Locke ordered Jeff, who was behind him. Jeff spread his hands and unleashed a dimensional space slash at the bound Wang Yu. Ha! Wang Yu had seen the instant kill effect of dimensional slash before, so he naturally did not dare to underestimate it. He shouted and immediately activated his chi. A blue light flashed on his body, and he exerted force on his feet. Smack! The trap was crushed by his feet. Wang Yu rolled backward and dodged Jeff's attack. At this time, the Templar Apostle had already rushed to the front row of the ragtag team with the ragtag team. Without Chun Xiang's CC and Mingdu's AoE damage, the ragtag team's ability in team battles was greatly reduced. Facing the charging opponents, they could only rely on the front row to fight head-on. The Templar Battle Squad's Warrior Slaughter and Shield Warrior Guardian held off the rest of the Ragtag Battle Squad under the cover of their archers. The Templar Apostle stabbed his scepter into the ground, and a ring of light spread out. The Templar Apostle's fist glowed with blue light as he punched towards Wang Yu. Before Wang Yu could get up, The Templar Apostle's huge fist had already smashed into Wang Yu's back. Wang Yu hurriedly used both her hands to support herself on the ground and kicked backwards. Duong! A loud sound. Wang Yu's feet landed on the Templar Apostle's fist. As a paladin, the Templar Apostle's judgment was relatively high. Even pugilist evildoers run wild could not suppress him, let alone Wang Yu. The fist and leg clashed. The Templar Apostle was kicked to the ground and stopped in his tracks. On the other hand, Wang Yu pressed his hands against the ground and used the momentum of his feet to leap forward. His whole body flew far away. Now, seeing that Wang Yu had flown away from the ragtag team's formation and pulled away from the others, the Templar Apostle immediately shouted in the team channel. Lock Bai opened and closed his arms. Wang Yu, who was in midair, suddenly felt his body sinking. He was caught in midair by a strong gravitational force. Before Wang Yu could break free, the gravel on the ground had already flown towards Wang Yu from all directions. Chapter 1922. If it were anyone else, they would have been crushed to death on the spot. However, Wang Yu was an expert. Although his body was caught, Wang Yu could still move his arms and legs. Faced with the flying rocks, Wang Yu's punches and kicks flew up and down. Even water couldn't get through, let alone these rocks. In an instant, the rocks around Wang Yu were sent flying by Wang Yu's punches and kicks. Smoke filled the air. Not a single rock hit Wang Yu. God! What did I just see? Seeing this scene, the Templar battle team was dumbfounded. Lock Bai's Gravity Pierce was Lock Bai's trump card. Regardless of whether it was against players or bosses, no one had ever been able to block this skill. However, Wang Yu had managed to block Lock Bai's invincible skill with just a normal attack. Such an unimaginable scene was simply unheard of. Although everyone was mentally prepared for Wang Yu's strength from the start, they never imagined that Wang Yu could actually be this strong. Lock's Gravity Pierce used up a lot of mana to control the rock. Although it didn't cost much mana, if the target resisted too much, Lock's mana consumption would increase. With Wang Yu's punches and kicks, Lock's mana bar decreased at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, he had lost 1/3 of his mana. Lock Bai was so shocked that his face turned pale. If he allowed Wang Yu to continue like this, it wouldn't be long before he would die from Wang Yu's exhaustion. Attack Lock! At that moment, Wuji could tell that the core of the Templar battle team was locked. So, he immediately gave the order to attack. To place one's pride and the others were being held back by the Templar battle team. At that moment, the only ones who could attack were the ranged attackers, Yang Na and evildoers Run Wild, who were protecting the back. Following Wuji's order, Yang Na and evildoers Run Wild rushed towards Lock. Protect me! Lock's eyes and ears were on high alert. When he saw the two demons charging towards him, he quickly gave orders to his teammates around him. After the Saint Apostle sent Wang Yu flying, he had been keeping an eye on evildoers Run Wild. When he saw evildoers Run Wild rush out of the team, he went up to him without saying a word. Both of them were experts among experts, and their strengths were about the same. For a moment, they were locked in a stalemate. Yang Na was the only player who could attack from the motley bunch. Other than Jeff and Locke, the Templar battle team still had the Priest, Templar Heart, and the Archer, Mobile Cannon. The coordination between well-trained professional experts was quite perfect. Working together against an enemy wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Although Yang Na could gain the upper hand in a one-on-one fight, when her opponents worked together, Yang Na simply couldn't gain the upper hand. With one attacking and the other supporting, they easily suppressed Yang Na out of Lock Bai's safe range. After they were temporarily safe, Lock Bai controlled more gravel to fly into the air. Gravity Seal. As he chanted, Lock Bai's open hand suddenly clenched into a fist. His mana and mana bar instantly dropped to the bottom. At the same time, all the gravel in the air pressed down on Wang Yu. If Wang Yu hadn't been caught by the gravity spell, he could still escape even if he couldn't block such an attack. However, now that Wang Yu was locked in place, he couldn't move. No matter how strong his arms and legs were, he couldn't block the gravel that covered the sky. As Wang Yu struggled, the gravel in the sky drowned Wang Yu. All the gravel piled up in the air, forming a huge stone ball. Jeff! Hurry, he's going to escape. At this moment, Lock Bai turned his head and shouted at Jeff. Jeff stared at the stone ball in the air and pulled his arms. Rip! The space behind the stone ball was torn open, revealing a huge teleportation door. Lock Bai gathered the last of his mana and pointed the staff in his right hand at the stone ball in the air. Swoosh! The staff turned into a ray of light and hit the stone ball. The stone ball was hit by the ray of light and slowly rolled into the teleportation door at the side. Boom! The moment the stone ball hit the teleportation door, Wang Yu finally broke free from the seal, but it was too late. Jeff's teleportation door was already closed. The scene in front of Wang Yu flashed, and he was teleported to the edge of the map. Phew! Seeing that Wang Yu was successfully banished, everyone in the Templar battle team let out a long sigh of relief. Especially Locke and Jeff, they collapsed to the ground as if they had collapsed. The Templar battle team had dominated the game for many years. They had seen all sorts of situations and fought all sorts of experts. However, this was the first time the Templar battle team had mobilized its entire team just to banish a single player. This was even more nerve-wracking than fighting a boss. They had fought for so many years, but they had never been as tired as today. The audience was dumbfounded when they saw the Templar battle team expending so much effort just to teleport Wang Yu to the edge of the battlefield. What was going on in the heads of these fellows? Did they use so many tricks just to deal with this Grandmaster of Combat? Of course, the audience was still just an audience. They were not at the level of a top-tier expert, so they could not feel the significance of Wang Yu's ability to decide the outcome of a match. However, for the Templar battle team, to be able to banish Wang Yu from the battlefield meant that they had won more than 80% of the match. Chun Xiang, Mingdu, and Wang Yu. They could be said to be the three most important elements in a motley crew battle team. The three represented control, damage output, and nuclear deterrence. Now that Chun Xiang and Mingdu were eliminated in the first round, and Wang Yu was teleported to God knows where, the motley crew battle team formation was instantly lost. Other than Yang Na, the rest were all melee damage output players, and Yang Na was a melee archer. With this kind of class composition, it would be difficult to fight against a normal team, let alone the Templar battle team, a top-tier opponent in terms of class composition and skill. After a few rounds, Bao San to place one's pride, Yin Lao Air, and the other two were killed by the Templar battle team's coordinated attack. Other than the two assassins killed by Wang Yu and evildoers Run Wild, the Templar battle team only suffered one casualty. Currently, the motley crew only had 3 people left on the battlefield: Wuji, evildoers Run Wild, and Yang Na. A cleric, a grandmaster of combat, and an archer. They could only form the most basic offensive and defensive formation. On the other hand, the Templar battle team still had 7 people, and their class composition was basically unchanged. At this moment, be it in terms of numbers or overall strength, the motley crew was at an absolute disadvantage. Chapter 1923. Although Yang Na and evildoers Run Wild were strong, they weren't experts like Wang Yu, who could annihilate the entire field. Moreover, Wuji's damage output could only be used once, so he wouldn't be of much help in this situation. After a few more rounds of attacks, Yang Na and evildoers Run Wild were outnumbered and were killed by the Templar team. In the battlefield, only Wuji was left of the motley crew. Hee. Looking at the remaining Wuji in front of him, Lock Bai flashed his signature smile of a victor. In fact, people like Wuji and Lock Bai were more ambitious players. To them, using their own strength to kill their opponents was no longer enough to satisfy their vanity. Using their intelligence to suppress their opponents was the result they desired the most. Although Wuji came from a grassroots background, His ability to plan and command was better than a master tactician like Lok Bai. After a few battles, Lok Bai had a deep understanding of this. Now that Wuji had been killed by Lok Bai's team, Lok Bai felt an unprecedented sense of victory. Sir Wuji, you won the last time we fought. This time, I've returned the favor. Lok Bai smiled proudly and said, You're the first to lead a group of amateurs to force the Templar team to this point. How about it? Can you admit defeat now? The motley crew had suffered heavy casualties. The only strong target had been banished to the sky. Looking at the current situation of the battlefield, the motley crew was bound to lose. After all, half of the match had passed. It was impossible for a person like Wang Yu, who had no sense of direction, to find this place within 20 minutes. Moreover, there were 7 people left in the Templar team. Even if Wang Yu could find this place, he might not be able to tie the score before the end of the match. Admit defeat? Hearing Lok Bai's words, Wuji smiled and said, Do you think you've already won? What else? Lok Bai raised his eyebrows and asked, Do you think there's still room for redemption? That's right. I don't care about you people at all. With that, Wuji took a step forward. Seeing Wuji walk forward, Lok Bai and the others were shocked and took a step back. It couldn't be helped. This trash's self-destruct flow was too terrifying. No one wanted to lose their dignity in such a situation. However, this retreat just happened to reveal the fear the members of the Templar battle team had towards Wuji, which was exactly what Wuji wanted. Haha! Wuji laughed heartily, causing everyone in the Templar battle team to blush. Damn it, this son of AB*TCH was really despicable. Even in such a situation, he still didn't forget to toy with people. Do you see that? You want us to surrender? Wuji looked at the members of the Templar battle team with disdain. With a wave of his staff, he floated up into the air. He wants to escape, kill him! Seeing that Wuji had used flight, the ranged members of the Templar battle team attacked Wuji without hesitation. Facing the attacks of the Templar battle team, Wuji didn't panic. He sprinkled a golden light on his head. Dang 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 dang! The attacks from the great Templar battle team landed on Wuji's body, but they were all deflected. Withstanding the attacks, Wuji raised his body to an extremely high altitude. Look at the fireworks! After flying high, Wuji sent a message to Wang Yu and self-destructed. Boom! With a loud bang, Wuji exploded in the air. The golden light scattered in the sky like a signal flare. Even though the forest of shattered rocks was huge, there was still a limit to it. When Wuji self-destructed at an extremely high altitude, even Wang Yu, who was at the edge of the forest of shattered rocks, could see it clearly. Wang Yu was someone who knew Qinggong. The complicated terrain of the forest of crushed stone was of little use to Wang Yu. Wang Yu could easily get lost because he didn't have a target. At this time, Wuji self-destructed to send a signal flare to Wang Yu. It was like a lighthouse in the dark, pointing Wang Yu in the right direction. Seeing the light in the sky far away, Wang Yu had a target. He immediately used his movement technique to fly into the sky and flew towards the direction where Wuji exploded at an extremely fast speed. When the large map was used as a battlefield, the system would automatically adjust the scale. Therefore, the forest of crushed stone was not as large as the real map. When Wang Yu's Qinggong was at full power, he could only be described as fast as lightning. He could definitely be called the fastest speed in the game. In just a few minutes, Wang Yu flew all the way to the battlefield. At this time, the Templar team had already killed the low-health Wuji. At the same time, they couldn't help but sigh at Wuji's self-destruction. This guy is really stubborn. He would rather die than surrender. Yeah. Luckily, Lao Bai's gravity caught him. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to kill him with our own hands. I didn't expect this guy to be so stubborn. He looks so shameless. Hearing his teammates' discussion, Lok Bai could not help but frown. Although Lok and Wuji weren't friends, they were both master tacticians. They understood each other very well. Who was Wuji? This guy would rather die than be at a disadvantage. Even if he died, he would skin his opponent alive. Why would this guy self-destruct for no reason? Could it be, oh no? Locke's heart skipped a beat. He immediately said in fear, "Let's get out of here." "Why do we have to leave?" the others asked in confusion. Now that their opponents were all dead, only Iron Ox was left at the edge of the map. Now everyone just had to wait for the time to run out. There was no need to run around. The cleric's self-destruction was actually a signal to his teammates. Locke shouted anxiously. "His teammates will be here soon. I thought it was something big." Hearing this, everyone curled their lips. "We have 7 people here. There's only one opponent. Do we have to run? No matter how strong he is, can he kill all of us? Since he came looking for us, we won't have to waste time here." As top-tier players, the Templar team was still very confident in their own strength. They admitted that they definitely wouldn't be a match for Wang Yu in a one-on-one fight. Even if it was 2 against 1, they still wouldn't be a match for Wang Yu. But now there were 7 of them. They had all classes and their teamwork was flawless. They were the most elite team in the world. Not to mention a mere player, even if the opponent was a celestial boss, it wouldn't be a problem. Moreover, everyone here was a famous expert. They were people who cared about their reputation. If word got out that they were 7 against 1 and they still had to run away, where would they put their faces in the future? Just now, a group of people had banded together to banish Wang Yu. That was because the members of the Motley Crowd battle team weren't weak. Getting rid of Wang Yu was an act of helplessness. Now that the members of the Motley Crowd battle team were all dead, they were still hiding from Wang Yu. Wasn't that too cowardly? This was a matter of dignity. They couldn't back down. Chapter 1924. Sorry for disturbing everyone. Happy Lantern Festival of I Am Martial Arts Scholar Online. Currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1925. This guy is different from ordinary people. Locke said anxiously, "It's better for us to play it safe." As someone who had fought Wang Yu face to face, Locke had the most right to comment on Wang Yu's strength. Humph. However, when the Saint Apostle heard this, he calmly said, "I know he isn't an ordinary person. Just now, that monster Heng Xing wasn't an ordinary person either. Didn't he still get killed by us? Don't treat them as gods." Limits? Locke frowned, not knowing how to refute the Apostle's words. Obviously, the Apostle was right. Evildoers run wild, and Wang Yu were definitely the same kind of people. However, Evildoers Run Wild was killed in a few rounds. Although Wang Yu was stronger than Evildoers Run Wild, there was a limit to his attributes. If Evildoers Run Wild could fight 2 at once, Wang Yu could fight 3 at most. Now that there were 7 of them in the team, there was a perfect combination of attack, defense, and healing. There was no reason to be afraid of a single person. The Forest of Crushed Stones was different from the Dark Forest. Although they were both complex maps, the trees in the Dark Forest were so tall that they covered the sky. Wang Yu couldn't see the ground from midair. On the other hand, the Forest of Crushed Stones was barren. Other than the strange rocks in the forest, there was nothing else. It was basically impossible to block vision from the sky. Just when the members of the Templar squad were discussing whether they should escape from Wang Yu or stay and fight with Wang Yu had already flown above the Templar squad. As a top-tier professional team, the Templar battle team naturally had their eyes and ears wide open. The instant Wang Yu appeared in their field of vision, the lookout phone cannon discovered Wang Yu's figure and hurriedly said, "It's too late to run now. That kid is here." "Where is he?" Hearing the warning, everyone subconsciously looked around, but they didn't see anything. The lookout cannon pointed diagonally above and said, "Above." Everyone looked in the direction the cannon was pointing, and sure enough, they saw a black dot on the horizon. The black dot grew larger and clearer, and in an instant it was right above them. Who else could it be but Wang Yu? Grandmasters of combat can fly? Seeing that Wang Yu had actually flown over, even the experts of the Templar battle team revealed expressions of disbelief. It was one thing for magical classes to be able to fly. After all, magical classes were proficient in all sorts of strange spells, and flying was only one of them. A Grandmaster of combat was just a close combat profession. Being able to fly in the sky was somewhat against common sense. Of course, this was a competition. As a pro player, he knew that he was here to compete, not to admire other people's skills. Seeing that Wang Yu had flown into his field of vision, Lok Bai immediately raised his hand and used gravity on Wang Yu. At the same time, the machine gun behind Lok Bai knocked an arrow and fired at Wang Yu. This trick again? Wang Yu, who was in midair, smiled. He immediately cancelled his Qigong state and used Eagle Stamp. Swoosh! Wang Yu's figure suddenly descended, coincidentally dodging Lok Bai's gravity and the attack of the lookout cannon. He instantly landed on the ground. Seeing this scene, Lok Bai felt his scalp go numb. Gravity was a skill that was different from normal magician skills. In the setting of rebirth, magic had unique and distinct skill effect. Usually, regardless of whether it was fireball or icicle, they all had physical bodies made of element. When attacking a target, there would be traces. The reason why gravity was so difficult to defend against was that this skill did not have any so-called skill effect. It was colorless, tasteless, and formless. One of the biggest advantages of gravity was that it was impossible to dodge. However, Wang Yu seemed to be able to see the trajectory of Lok Bai's gravity with his naked eyes. He easily dodged Lok Bai's gravity with Eagle Stamp. Such a strange dodge made Lok Bai feel a sense of fear that he had never felt before. F***ck. What kind of people are these motley crew? First, there's a cleric who hugs people and self-destruct. Then, there's a warlock who can see Lok Bai's attributes with one look. This Grandmaster of combat in front of me is even more terrifying. He can actually see the invisible gravity attack. These guys, one after another, were like Lok Bai's nightmares. After all, the Templar battle team was a top professional battle team. The moment Wang Yu landed, they reacted quickly. Before Wang Yu landed, the shield warrior guardian raised the tower shield in his hand and rammed it towards Wang Yu's landing point. The weapon warrior Slaughter followed closely behind and began to charge up his skills. The shield warrior was responsible for defense and control, while the weapon warrior was responsible for damage. The two of them worked together to launch a combo attack. This was a common strategy used by experts. Duong. As soon as Wang Yu landed, Guardian raised his shield and rushed in front of Wang Yu. Collide cancelled the shield bash, and the huge shield smashed down towards Wang Yu's head. Just as the shield was about to hit Wang Yu, a dazzling circle of lightning suddenly spread out from Wang Yu's feet with Wang Yu as the center. Bang! The lightning struck the Guardian's body first despite being launched later. After being hit, Guardian's body shook. His shield bash was interrupted by the lightning, and he took half a step back. At this time, Slaughter had also rushed in. He leaped up and smashed a collapsing mountain towards Wang Yu's head. Shield bash stunned and collapsing mountain followed by a minor knockup was the highest combo attack in a dual battle formation. It was also the most common combo between Slaughter and Guardian. If this set of skills were to be used, Wang Yu would at least be beaten half to death. However, who would have thought that Wang Yu would only use a thunder stomp to interrupt this combo on the spot? Collapsing mountain was an air-to-ground skill. It didn't have high priority and had a lot of openings. It was much weaker than the complete form of collapsing mountain. If Wang Yu was stunned by shield bash, he would definitely take this move. However, in this situation, if he hit Wang Yu, Slaughter would be thinking too much. Faced with the descending carnage, Wang Yu did not dodge. Instead, he stretched out his right hand and grabbed the blade of carnage. Then, Wang Yu twisted his waist and pulled down with a ferocious tiger strike. Plop! Slaughter, who was flying in the air, was forcefully dragged to the ground by Wang Yu. He smashed heavily into the ground, causing smoke and dust to fly everywhere. Whoosh! Seeing that Slaughter and Guardian had failed, Machine Gun in the distance once again knocked an arrow and shot at Wang Yu. Death Snipe! With a piercing sound, Machine Gun's arrow flew behind Wang Yu's head. Wang Yu didn't even turn his head. He stretched out his left hand and grabbed. Machine Gun's arrow that had already flown to the back of Wang Yu's head was caught by Wang Yu's hand. Mobile version of the fastest updated website, M. Chapter 1926. F***CK. He can even catch it? Seeing Machine Gun's arrow being caught by Wang Yu with one hand, everyone's eyes popped out of their sockets. Catching an arrow with one's bare hands, for the current players, wasn't a particularly skillful maneuver. Most professional players could do it. However, that was only for normal arrow shot. Machine Gun was a top-notch expert. Of course, an expert of Wang Yu's level wouldn't use normal attacks. Machine Gun's skill was called Death Snipe. It was an archer's ultimate skill. Whether it was speed or power, it couldn't be compared to other forms of attack. It was a rare explosive skill for archers. It was a super powerful attack skill that could cause a one-hit kill effect on a vulnerable profession. Not to mention with bare hands, even if one used a weapon to block it, it wouldn't be easy to block it. However, not only did Wang Yu catch it, but he also did it so casually. What was even more hateful was that this kid didn't even look at the arrow behind him. It was as if he had eyes on the back of his head. He reached out and caught the Death Snipe in his hand. Not to mention ordinary players, even top-notch experts would be frightened when they saw this scene. This was practically a cheat code, a walking bug in human form, alright? How did such a monster appear in this competition? Of course, in the eyes of others, Wang Yu had caught the arrow. However, only Wang Yu himself knew how heavy this arrow was. After all, an archer was still one of the 7 major professions. As the ultimate skill, Death Snipe, how could it be caught so easily? This was too ridiculous. If the players were willing, the system would also hold them accountable. If someone caught Shadow Chain Kick in their hand, even a Grandmaster of Combat wouldn't be willing. Wang Yu didn't actually catch this arrow. The moment he touched the arrow, Wang Yu felt the powerful impact of the arrow. Therefore, Wang Yu used a technique that leveraged the force of the arrow. Although he didn't catch the arrow, he forcefully changed the direction of the arrow from the back of his head to the front of his body. Following that, Wang Yu's left hand extended forward, thrusting the remaining arrows towards Carnage. It was time to focus on killing. The pitiful Slaughter was pulled down from the air by Wang Yu and fell to the ground. In Kung Fu, it was called the backwards falling wild goose style. At this time, its butt was facing Wang Yu. Such a suggestive posture was indeed a little immoral. Wang Yu was a more traditional person. He would feel uncomfortable if he didn't kick this kind of behavior. It was unknown if Wang Yu did it intentionally or unintentionally, but he grabbed an arrow from the autocannon and aimed it at Carnage's butt. Poochie! Under everyone's watchful eyes, the autocannon's Death Sniper accurately pierced between the 2 sides of the Slaughter wall. The powerful impact caused the arrow to plunge halfway into the wall. Slaughter let out a moan that would cause people's imagination to run wild. This was a clear water novel, not a pornographic novel, and it didn't describe the specific. In any case, the moment the moan of massacre was heard, the audience's sphincter muscles subconsciously contracted. The tens of thousands of people in the audience were not the only ones watching the game. There were also hundreds of millions of Rebirth players watching the livestream. The tragic Slaughter was killed in front of hundreds of millions of people. However, this wasn't the end. The reason why Death Sniper's damage was amazing was that this skill had 2 stages of damage. In addition to the powerful penetrating ability, there was also a burst damage after hitting the target. Of course, the damage of such a skill was terrifying. Now that it was used on Slaughter, the horror of this skill rose to another level. Art was explosion. Bang! A muffled sound. Slaughter's whole body trembled from the explosion, and the health bar on his head instantly dropped below 30%. At the same time, thick black smoke came out of Slaughter's orifices. The autocannon completed its achievement and hit its own teammate. Wang Yu was a soft-hearted person. Seeing Slaughter in so much pain, he couldn't bear to see him die, so he stepped on the back of Slaughter's head and killed him instantly, giving him a quick death. At this moment, the shield warrior guardian, who was standing behind Wang Yu, had already recovered from the shock. He was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. For experts of their level, winning or losing was not scary. After all, winning and losing were common things in war. No one could guarantee a win without losing. However, the way he died determined his value. Slaughter's death was definitely a textbook example of disgrace. Obviously, being killed in front of hundreds of millions of people was really embarrassing. Anyone with a little bit of self-respect wouldn't want to die like this. It was reasonable for Guardian to have lingering fears. It couldn't be helped. The opponent's methods were too sinister, so sinister that it made people tremble. Wang Yu didn't give Guardian a chance to be afraid. After killing Slaughter, Wang Yu turned around and kicked Guardian. "Guardian, raise your shield." Seeing this, Locke hurriedly gave Guardian a defensive command. However, as soon as Guardian raised his shield, Wang Yu had already flashed behind Guardian and kicked him in the back. Guardian's heel hit the ground from Wang Yu's kick, and he was sent flying. Just as Wang Yu was about to follow up with another kick, the Templar Apostle rushed in front of Wang Yu. The Templar Apostle stuck the scepter in his hand into the ground, and the totem's holy light spread out. The Templar Apostle's hand shone with a dazzling blue light as he punched at Wang Yu's back. Feeling the killing intent behind him, Wang Yu abruptly turned around. Pushing off the ground with his feet, he pushed his palms forward. Bam! Their fists and palms collided. Wang Yu caught the Saint Apostle's heavy fist with both palms and then swung his waist backward. Under the inertia and the impact of the Saint Apostle's heavy fist, the Saint Apostle was thrown into the air and smashed towards Guardian. Almost at the same time, Wang Yu's palms emitted a red and blue light. Roar! With a dragon's roar, two giant dragons gushed out and hit the Saint Apostle, who was in midair. Double dragon break. Just as the two dragons landed on the Saint Hall Apostle's body, a golden light descended and enveloped the Saint Hall Apostle. Boom! The giant dragons crashed into the golden light and exploded, but the Saint Apostle was unscathed. Holy light shield? Wang Yu squinted his eyes when he saw this. As expected of a top professional team, their coordination was very good. They could even save the Saint Apostle in this situation. Although the Templar Apostle wasn't killed by Wang Yu's palm, his heart was still filled with terror. If the Saint Heart had not thrown the Holy Light shield in time, the Saint Apostle would have met the God of Light. Just now, the Saint Apostle had launched a sneak attack. Not only did he not hit Wang Yu, but he was also almost killed by Wang Yu. One could imagine how scared the Saint Apostle was. He thought that Evildoers Run Wild was already a super expert, but he did not expect this guy to be even more terrifying than Evildoers Run Wild. Is this your true strength? The Saint Apostle could not help but ask in fear. Hee. Wang Yu smiled and replied calmly, "Have you seen my true strength?" Mobile version of the fastest updated website, M. Chapter 1927. As he spoke, a black-red flame rose from Wang Yu's body. His eyes emitted a fiery glow, and the ground beneath his feet cracked. Black flames rose from his feet. Blazing steps. Activate. In the exchange of blows just now, Wang Yu had already gotten a rough idea of his opponent's strength. Although Wang Yu had been suppressing them and even killed one of them, Wang Yu knew in his heart that this group of people's strength was definitely not limited to this. The reason why he was able to gain the upper hand was because his opponents did not understand Wang Yu and made a subjective mistake. If his opponents knew that Wang Yu's murderous aura could detect attacks from behind, they would not have launched a sneak attack and would not have been caught off guard. However, now that his opponents understood that sneak attacks were useless against Wang Yu, it would not be so easy to deal with them if they formed a formation again. After all, Wang Yu was alone while his opponents had both offense and defense. They had crowd control and healers. It was very difficult to make up for the difference in their classes. He needed to increase his attribute. After activating Raging Flame Steps, Wang Yu's attributes skyrocketed, and his aura became overbearing. Seeing this scene, Locke was shocked and hurriedly ordered, "Everyone, pay attention to your coordination. Watch my skill coordination." As he spoke, Locke waved his hand and used a gravity spell to control a boulder and threw it at Wang Yu. Facing the flying boulder, Wang Yu did not dodge. Instead, he used his right hand like a knife and pointed it forward. Bang! The boulder was split in half by Wang Yu's palm. Guardian, who was behind Wang Yu, took advantage of the gap when Wang Yu blocked Locke's skill to raise his shield and smash it down again. As a top-tier expert, Locke and Guardian were very skilled in their coordination. Locke knew what he had to do with just a look from Guardian. Now that Locke was using gravity spell to attack Wang Yu, Guardian understood that Locke was creating an opportunity for him. Wang Yu had just split the boulder apart. Before he could turn around, Guardian's shield had already smashed into Wang Yu's back. At this moment, it was too late for Wang Yu to dodge, so he could only forcefully resist. However, Shield Bash was one of the main crowd control skills of a shield warrior. Its priority was extremely high, and if Shi Feng tried to block it head-on, he would definitely be immobilized. Ha! At the critical moment, Wang Yu let out a roar. His body, which was wrapped in black flames, once again emitted two rays of light, one green and one purple. Wrath of Wind and Thunder. Activate. After activating the Wrath of Thundering Wind, Wang Yu's strength attribute soared. Immediately after, he turned around and sent a punch at Guardian's shield. Duang! The shield was a good shield, and the fist was a good fist. Wang Yu's fist collided with Guardian's shield, producing a loud sound. At the same time, the ground under their feet cracked open. A shock wave visible to the naked eye spread out from the center of gravity of the two. The apostles of the Holy Church, who were ready to strike, almost lost their balance from the powerful shock wave. Wang Yu's strength attribute was not weak to begin with. After activating the Wrath of Thundering Wind, his strength attribute rose to a frightening level. After taking Wang Yu's punch head-on, Guardian was forced back. Wang Yu's punch had left a deep imprint on the heavy tower shield. Cracks spread out from the center of the imprint. Although the crimson stripes on Guardian's head did not move, Guardian's face instantly turned green. A shield warrior's shield was a weapon. Its defensive mechanism was completely different from other defensive equipment. If one wanted to attack the player behind the shield, they would need to destroy the shield warrior's block value and shatter the shield. Setting aside the quality of the shield, Yin Lao Er, an amateur player, had a total of 4 block values. That was more than enough to withstand the damage of a god-ranked boss. Guardian was a top-tier expert. In terms of block value, he was definitely not weaker than Yin Lao Er. Guardian's block value was 2 blocks higher than Yin Lao's thanks to his various attribute. However, under the buff of the Shield Bash skill, when he was hit by Wang Yu's punch, all 6 of his block bars were instantly cleared. Even his shield was on the verge of being destroyed. One could only imagine the damage of this punch. Fortunately, he had his shield to block the attack. Otherwise, he would have been beaten half to death if he had taken the full brunt of the punch. He had nearly 300,000 HP after activating Ward a few times. Compared to ordinary people, professional experts' biggest advantage was their wealth of equipment. Although Guardian was surprised, his hands were not idle. After his main shield was nearly destroyed by Wang Yu's punch, Guardian threw it to the ground and switched to a large, golden shield. Duong! Guardian slammed the shield into the ground. He steadied himself as he retreated. At the same time, he grabbed the shield with his right hand and pointed his middle finger at Wang Yu with his left hand. He shouted, F***CK. Taunt could only be dodged, not blocked. The best way to deal with a taunt from a shield warrior was to jump out of the skill's range. However, after the punch, Wang Yu was still in a state of stun. Naturally, he did not have the opportunity to jump back. After all, his opponent was a top-class expert and a shield warrior. His grasp of timing was quite accurate. Wang Yu, who was in the middle of the taunt, was involuntarily pulled in front of Guardian. The St. Hall Apostle on the side also took advantage of the situation. He lowered his body and threw a punch at Wang Yu's abdomen. Chain control. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the professional experts below the stage changed. Chain control meant that the various classes gave up on their damage output and used their crowd control to carry out a multi-stage combo. For example, when Chuanjin's group was fighting Nephis, they had used this kind of chain control technique. However, under normal circumstances, no team would use this kind of technique, whether it was in a competition or against a boss. After all, the damage output of crowd control skills was generally not very high. Although using chain control combination skills was more reliable, it would affect the damage output and waste time. Only when faced with an extremely difficult situation would one use this kind of multi-class chain control combination skill. The current Wang Yu to the Templar team was equivalent to Flame Monarch Nephis to Chuanjin. In order to kill Wang Yu, to be able to force a top-class team like the Templar team to use this kind of technique, just how strong was this Grandmaster of Combat? After a few exchanges, the members of the Templar team realized how difficult it was to deal with the opponent in front of them. Against an expert of this level, they could not afford to be careless. Therefore, when the Holy Church Apostle attacked Wang Yu, the cannons in the distance also provided cover for the Holy Church Apostle. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Just as the St. Hall Apostle rushed in front of Wang Yu, several arrows whistled through the air and flew towards Wang Yu's face. Although Wang Yu, who was being held back by Guardian, was unable to move, facing a pincer attack from his opponent, Wang Yu did not show the slightest hint of panic. Wang Yu took a step forward with her left foot and stomped on the Saint Apostle's head with a bang. P.S. Isn't it a little early today? Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 1928. The charging Templar Apostle was not weak either. Borrowing the momentum of the Templar Apostle, Wang Yu leaned back and escaped from Guardian's control. Clang, 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 clang. The arrow missed and landed on the Guardian's shield. However, at this moment, Lok Bai raised his staff at Wang Yu. As the commander of the Templar battle team, Lok Bai's eyes were extremely sharp. Naturally, he would not allow Wang Yu to escape his control. Seeing Wang Yu fall back, Lok Bai immediately used a gravitational spell on Wang Yu, who was in midair. Before Wang Yu could land, he was bound in midair by Lok Bai. Seeing this, the Templar Apostle and Guardian rushed forward and hugged Wang Yu, who had been caught by Lok Bai's gravity. Pfft! Seeing this scene, the audience spat out a mouthful of blood. Was this really a fight between experts? Why were they as shameless as thugs on the streets? They even hugged people. The Chuanjin members were even more shocked. No way is the Templar battle team so shameless? What a surprise, what a surprise. I didn't expect them to be so ungentlemanly. Clinging, commonly known as the beginner's technique, in the early stages of the game, players might instinctively do this when they first started playing holographic simulation games. However, now that the average level of everyone was above level 60, the skills of all the professions had been perfected, and everyone had some understanding of various combat techniques, they were naturally disdainful of this kind of fighting method in the early stages. After all, in the eyes of most players, Only desperate newbies would resort to such underhanded tactic. The fact that the Templar battle team, a group of top-tier experts, had resorted to such underhanded tactics in the S-rank Pro League was truly unexpected. This was basically the equivalent of throwing a tantrum in the Olympics. Is this guy so difficult to deal with? Compared to the mockery and disdain of the ordinary people, the professional experts were much calmer. Different levels had different perspectives on the problem. To deal with a mere grandmaster of combat, the Templar battle team first used their combo skill, and then used such a clinging technique. It was clear that the Templar battle team was not calm at all. Mentality determined the outcome of the battle. How ruthless was this grandmaster of combat to be able to force a top-tier expert team to this extent? Although the Templar battle team's moves were despicable and ugly, Wang Yu was still quite useful. Originally, Wang Yu was already bound, only his arms and legs able to move. Now that the two Holy Church apostles walked up and grabbed him, only then could they truly control Wang Yu. In fact, the members of the Templar battle team were also trying to maintain their dignity. Their reputation was still very important, but they had no choice. Once Lok Bai's gravity spell was resisted, his mana would automatically increase. If they didn't hold on to Wang Yu, with Wang Yu's ferocious strength, Lok Bai's mana would be depleted after a few struggles. Although the wrath of wind and lightning on Wang Yu's body had disappeared, the blazing step state was still there, and Wang Yu's strength was still relatively strong. After being hugged by the two, Wang Yu instinctively began to struggle. Although the two Holy Church apostles and guardian were heavy tanks, they were still shaken by Wang Yu's powerful strength. However, Wang Yu's mana was still able to withstand this degree of struggle. Although he could withstand it, the two Holy Church apostles were not so lucky. Under Wang Yu's struggle, the two Holy Church apostles felt like their arms were about to be torn off. Even though they couldn't feel the pain, the feeling of being pulled was unbearable. After a moment, the Holy Church apostles shouted with a red face, "Jeff, hurry up! We can't hold on any longer." In order to capture Wang Yu, the Holy Church apostles had even thrown away their most valued dignity. If they let Wang Yu break free, wouldn't they lose face for nothing? All right, get out of the way. At this moment Jeff, who had been silent all this while, opened his arms. A huge spatial crack appeared above Wang Yu's head. Then, Jeff's arm dropped down and the spatial crack flew towards Wang Yu and the other two. Seeing this, the Holy Church apostles and guardian hurriedly let go of Wang Yu and dodged to the side. As for Wang Yu, who was under Wang Yu's control, he couldn't avoid it. Seeing that the outcome had been decided, everyone in the Holy Church team let out a sigh of relief. The Holy Church apostles gave Wang Yu a thumbs up and said with sincere admiration, "Goodbye, expert. Rebirth is not a single-player game." As he spoke, Jeff put his arms together, and the spatial crack began to rapidly shrink. Everyone on and off the stage stared at the trapped Wang Yu, their minds full of thoughts. One person against 7 top-notch experts and still had the upper hand, even forcing the opponents to use despicable methods to trap him. It was truly a pity that such an expert had died here. If he had a team of good teammates, if his teammates could help, who knew what the outcome of this battle would be like? The world's #1 expert might not necessarily be the champion, but his strength was firmly imprinted in everyone's hearts. Even if the Holy Church team won the championship, Wang Yu would still be the uncrowned king in everyone's hearts. However, just when everyone thought that Wang Yu was definitely going to die, a hand suddenly reached out from under Wang Yu's feet and grabbed his ankle. Locke felt his feet sink and he was pulled into the ground. Poochie! At the same time, a cold light flashed, and a pitch-black dagger pierced through Locke's head. Warlocks weren't a profession with high HP. Locke died on the spot after being stabbed in a vital spot. By the time Locke reacted, he was already off the stage. On the stage, a black figure quickly disappeared, activated swift movement, and ran out of the stage without looking back. This is... Everyone was stunned when they saw the black hand that suddenly appeared on the stage. Northern Dark Sea Fish. A guy who disappeared the moment he entered the stage. Northern Dark Sea Fish was born with a translucent physique. She didn't have much of a presence in the motley crew, and no one cared about her on the stage. Before entering the stage, Wuji had instructed Northern Dark Sea Fish that she only had 2 tasks in this competition. First, hide and don't die. Second, take the opportunity to kill Locke. Locke was the commander of the Holy Church team, and also the main controller of the team. However, his skills were quite overpowered, and normal people couldn't even get close to him. They could only attack when he was at his lowest alert. Northern Dark Sea Fish, who had been hiding at the start, was ignored by everyone. Locke obviously didn't care either. At this time, Locke's attention was all on Wang Yu, and he naturally didn't care about the assassin under his feet. Moreover, Wang Yu was already at death's door. When the enemy was about to be killed, everyone in the Holy Church team was at their lowest alert. Northern Dark Sea Fish decisively attacked, ending Locke's life with 1 slash. Hee hee. Seeing that Northern Dark Sea Fish had succeeded, Wang Yu smiled. That's right. Rebirth was never a single-player game. Chapter 1929. Although Locke Bai wasn't the strongest in the Templar battle team, he played the most important position, which was the C position. After Locke Bai was killed, not only did the Templar battle team lose their main control, but they also lost their first commander. The originally complete battle team was now missing the most important part. With a complete battle team, 7 of them couldn't even suppress Wang Yu, let alone the 5 of them who were currently in a mess. Wang Yu's figure flashed, and he dodged Jeff's dimensional slash. He then looked around at the remaining 5 members of the Templar battle team and slowly rolled up his sleeve. Now, let's fight the second round. As he spoke, Wang Yu's gaze suddenly became sharp, and his entire aura became exceptionally serious. Stop him. After Locke Bai's death, Jeff automatically became the main commander. When he saw Wang Yu's aura change, he decisively ordered the Apostle and Guardian to stop him. Then, Jeff turned around and said to Cannon and Templar, "Let's retreat." At this moment, the Templar battle team still had 5 members on the field, while the Motley Crowd battle team only had 2 members left. Disregarding the difference in strength, the Templar battle team had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. At this moment, there was still a chance for them to win by making a strategic retreat. After all, even if they sacrificed the Apostle and Guardian, the final score would still be in the Templar battle team's favor. The Templar battle team no longer had any dignity left to talk about, and retreating quickly was the most important thing. Following Jeff's command, the Guardian and the Templar Apostle charged towards Wang Yu. The 2 of them weren't far from Wang Yu, and they reached Wang Yu in an instant. Great trench! Guardian leaped, raised his shield, and smashed it down heavily. Boom! A huge crack appeared on the ground, sealing off Wang Yu's path of retreat. Wrath of Heaven's hurricane! At the same time, the Apostle waved his fists, and 2 scarlet whirlwinds spun and flew towards Wang Yu. At this moment, the 2 holy apostles understood that their mission was to protect their teammates' retreat even if they had to risk their lives. As such, they immediately unleashed powerful attack. The 2 skills complemented each other seamlessly, sealing off all of Wang Yu's space to advance and retreat, preventing Wang Yu from moving at all. At this moment, the apostle swooped down in front of Wang Yu and sent a fist smashing towards his abdomen. Hee hee. Wang Yu smiled faintly. With a twist of his feet, his entire body moved to the side, easily dodging the attack of the Holy Church Apostle. After the St. Paul's Apostle's punch missed, he immediately swayed and disappeared from where he stood in a flash. The instant the Holy Church's Apostle disappeared, Wang Yu's eyes narrowed. He raised his left arm slightly and bent his elbow backward. Bang! Just as Wang Yu raised his left arm, the Holy Church Apostle appeared behind him and rammed his face into Wang Yu's elbow. The angle of Wang Yu's elbow was extremely crafty, accurately hitting the bridge of the Holy Church Apostle's nose. Although there was no pain in the game, the players could still feel the pain of the nose being hit. As for how it felt, if they didn't have to go to work tomorrow, they could try it out. Ayah! The Holy Church Apostle involuntarily cried out in pain. He covered his face and squatted on the ground. It felt as if the Holy Church Apostle had purposely bumped into him. Ha! Before Wang Yu could follow up with another kick, Guardian had already raised his shield and smashed it in front of Wang Yu. Unhurriedly, Wang Yu lowered his body and squatted down, dodging the attack from under the shield. Then, he rolled to the back of Guardian. Guardian's reaction was also extremely fast. He hurriedly cancelled his attack and stomped the ground with his right foot. Boom! With Guardian as the center, the ground within a 500-meter radius cracked under Guardian's stomp. War Stomp could cause the target to be knocked into the air. Wang Yu, who was still rolling, had yet to get up. He immediately stomped back with both feet, intending to jump out of Guardian's attack range. However, at this moment, the Holy Church Apostle recovered and reached out to grab Wang Yu's foot. Bang! Wang Yu took Guardian's War Stomp head-on and was sent flying into the air by the shockwave from the ground. The airborne state was the starting position for all combo skills. Seeing that Wang Yu had been knocked into the air, the Holy Church Apostle immediately moved forward to execute a combo. At this moment, Wang Yu had already completed his quick recover. His feet shone with dazzling lightning as he used Thunder Stomp. His two large feet kicked towards the Holy Church Apostle's face. At that moment, Guardian had already turned around and raised his shield in front of the Holy Church Apostle. Duong! Stepping on the shield, Wang Yu used the momentum to somersault backwards and land on the ground. The two Holy Church Apostles were also kicked back a few steps by Wang Yu before they could stabilize themselves. As top-class experts, the Holy Church Apostle and Guardian's strength was definitely top-notch. At this moment, one offensive and one defensive, their coordination was flawless. They advanced and retreated in an orderly manner, attacking and defending at will. Moreover, the two of them were doing their best to buy time for the other three. Wang Yu could not easily subdue them. While the three of them were fighting, Jeff and the others had already run far away. They were about to escape from Wang Yu's field of vision. Wang Yu had a lot of experience when it came to chasing and killing someone. The most important thing when chasing a target was to not let the target escape from his field of vision. In the forest of pebbles, even Wang Yu himself could get lost, let alone find someone in such a complicated terrain. If Jeff and the others escaped from Wang Yu's field of vision, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. At this moment, there were less than 10 minutes until the third match. There was not much time left for Wang Yu. You still want to save your last resort for the finals. Wang Yu calmly looked at the Holy Church Apostle and Guardian and said, "Since you two are so persistent, then I won't be polite anymore." Yeah. Hearing Wang Yu's words, the two Holy Church Apostles were shocked, and tears were about to flow down their cheek. What the hell? Could it be that this terrifying guy in front of them had not used his full strength? In order to stop Wang Yu and buy time for their teammates, the two Holy Church Apostles had used all their strength. But who knew that this guy had not even used his true strength? That feeling was simply unbelievable. No one could understand the two Holy Church Apostles' mental breakdown. At this time, the Holy Church Apostles suddenly remembered what Wang Yu had said before. "Have you seen my true strength?" Obviously not. This terrifying monster had no upper limit. Even the audience below the stage were shocked beyond belief. Was this a joke? 1 against 7 top-tier players, and he still said that he had not used his full strength? Even if he wanted to show off, there had to be a limit. Even if he wanted to brag, he had to follow the basic rules, okay? However, under everyone's doubtful gazes, Wang Yu held his breath and spread his qi throughout his body. Ha! Following Wang Yu's shout, a golden light burst out from Wang Yu's body. Dragon Subduing Palm Mode. Activate. Mobile version of the fastest website, M. Chapter 1930. Super Scion? As soon as Wang Yu activated Dragon Subduing Palm, his entire body shone with a golden aura. The audience went into an uproar. The guy in front of them was just like the Scions in Dragon Ball. He could transform into all kinds of colors. First it was black and red, then it was green and purple, and finally it was golden. It seemed that the system didn't have many colors left for Wang Yu. After being defeated by Jeff twice in a row, Wang Yu had a rather deep impression of Jeff's methods. If he let them escape, they could open up a teleportation door and fly around the map. He was afraid that he would lose this match. As such, Wang Yu did not hesitate. He pushed his palms forward and activated his strongest skill, toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. Roar! Accompanied by a dragon's roar, a golden dragon surrounded by black and red flames gushed out from Wang Yu's palms. A line of ancient Chinese characters lit up above Wang Yu's head. True Dragon Subduing Art, Milestone! Quick block! Seeing this, the apostle hurriedly ordered Guardian beside him. Guardian braced himself and activated giant mode. He smashed the tower shield in his hands onto the ground and used the strongest defensive skill of a shield warrior, shield wall. Boom! A loud sound. At the same time, Wang Yu's Milestone crashed into Guardian's shield. Milestone was the strongest skill in Dragon Subduing Art, and also Wang Yu's strongest killing move. After activating his fourth transformation, Wang Yu could even kill a boss with a single palm strike. Although Wang Yu had only activated Burning Steps and Dragon Subduing Palm, with these two states, Wang Yu's damage was still not something an ordinary player could block. After all, a boss could easily have millions or even hundreds of millions of HP. How could a player compare to a boss? Even a super tank like Guardian only had around 300,000 HP. The golden dragon surrounded by black flames crashed into Guardian. It did not even have the intention of stopping. In an instant it engulfed the two of them. Both Guardian and Shield were instantly killed. After killing the two of them, the giant dragon continued to charge forward for a long distance before dissipating into golden energy. Instant kill, a crushing instant kill. Seeing this scene in the arena, everyone was dumbfounded. 300,000 health points. The Templar Apostles were combat type. Although they were tank classes, their HP was negligible. On the other hand, Guardian was a super shield warrior with over 300,000 HP. In Rebirth, the way players lost HP was different from monsters. Players could wear equipment, so the damage dealt would be greatly reduced in front of a player's defense. For example, a normal player could deal 10,000 damage to a monster, but a player could only deal 5,000 to 6,000 damage at most. A shield bearer could only deal around 2,000 to 3,000 damage. As one of the best shield warriors in the Templar battle team, Guardian's defense went without saying. The defense bonuses on his body were also innumerable. Moreover, he had activated shield wall while in his giant state. In this way, the 300,000 HP of Guardian was equivalent to more than 3 million HP on the monster. With such a high amount of HP, he was crushed by a single palm. It was clear that the attack power of Wang Yu's palm was beyond everyone's imagination. In this era where the damage dealt by a normal player's ultimate skill was less than 100,000, Wang Yu's palm had dealt more than 3 million damage. It could only be described as unbelievable. What kind of bug was this, to be able to deal such high damage? Even Jeff and the other two who were running away froze on the spot when they heard the dragon's roar. Out of everyone present, only Wang Yu acted as if he had done something insignificant. After killing his opponent within seconds, he dashed towards the three enemies who had already run far away with his fastest speed. It could not be helped. He had seen the power of this move many times. As the direct victim, Blackbeard had the most right to comment on the power of this move. Even a giant ship could be blasted to smithereens. In Wang Yu's eyes, killing 2 players in one shot was nothing. That was why it was said that the more experienced one was, the less flustered one would be. After activating Qinggong, Wang Yu's speed was as fast as a full-agility assassin with swift movement. He covered a distance of tens of meters in the blink of an eye. "He's coming." Seeing that Wang Yu was getting closer and closer, Jeff quivered and recovered from his shock. He picked up his staff and was about to draw a teleportation gate. Wang Yu knew that this brat's teleportation gate was disgusting. Naturally, he would not let him have his way. Seeing that Jeff was about to draw a circle with his staff, Wang Yu waved his hand and a long staff flew out. He struck Jeff's temple 1 step ahead of Wang Yu. Jeff was only a mage, so his body was relatively weak. At this moment, Wang Yu had activated 2 major statuses. Whether it was his attack or his priority, they were both extremely terrifying. Jeff naturally could not block this staff. Ouch! Jeff let out a blood-curdling scream. His body swayed as he was struck to the ground by the staff. The skill in his hand was forcefully interrupted, and the health bar above his head turned red. Seeing this, Templar Heart hurriedly tried to heal Jeff. The staff hit the target and bounced back. By this time, Wang Yu had already arrived in front of the 3. He caught the staff and swung it. But, without any deviation, the staff smashed into Holy Heart's neck. From the sound of it, it should have been broken. This was a direct attack from Wang Feather. If it hit a shield warrior, it would take half their HP. If it hit a frontline warrior, it would take a hit to red health. Holy Church's Heart was just a fragile cloth armor player. There was no way he could withstand this attack. With this one attack, Holy Heart immediately met its master. At this moment, only Jeff and Machine Cannon were left in the Templar battle team. The motley crew was already in an invincible position. Duong! Before Jeff could get up from the ground, Wang Yu had already stepped on Jeff's head, turning it into mush. Jeff dead. Wang Yu would hold back when killing others, but Wang Yu would definitely not let this Jeff go. Damn, he had caused trouble for Wang Yu twice in a row. One time, he forced a draw with Wang Yu, causing Wang Yu to be mocked by that bastard Mingdu. Naturally, Wang Yu was very unhappy with Jeff. Crushing Jeff's head would be considered letting him off lightly. If time allowed, Wang Yu might also let Jeff experience a higher level of being cut by 1,000 blades like Yang Na. It was not easy to become a space mage. Although he looked very strong, he would offend people the moment he attacked. For example, Jeff. At the same time, he offended both Wang Yu and Yang Na. Seeing that his companions were all dead, Machine Cannon's face turned green. He immediately turned around and ran. After all, he was not an experienced veteran like Lok Bai. This was the first time a youngster had come out to see the world. He still needed to train his mental fortitude. It was understandable for him to act cool and take a bath in the wind. However, if he still behaved like this after participating in many competitions, then he would be a complete giant baby. Of course, they had to kill the brat. Before the cannon could run far, a hand reached out from under the cannon's feet and dragged it to the ground. Then, a knife was stabbed into the cannon's head. System notification. 3rd round, Motley Crew Battle Team wins 10-8. Mobile version of the fastest updated website, M. Chapter 1931. As the winner of the 3rd match, Motley Crowd received an additional 10 points as a reward. After 3 matches, Motley Crowd finally won the match with an absolute advantage and successfully advanced to the next round. For a moment, the entire stadium was in an uproar, and the players in the arena were also in an uproar. Everyone had different expressions. Some were surprised, some were dissatisfied, some were unconvinced, and some were emotional. In short, all the expressions gathered together could only be described with one word: incredible. Esports had been around for decades since the rise of the industry. From a niche interest, it had developed into a national-level competition. For so many years, Motley Crue was the only team that participated as amateur players. Although Motley Crue had defeated other teams in the elimination and qualifiers, their style of play was obviously not very glorious. Their strength and style had always been criticized by the majority of the audience, and they were not favored by the audience. They thought that this team was just a group of clowns, relying on underhanded methods and luck to accidentally make it to the finals. They were like dog meat buns, and although they had some taste, they were not good enough to be put on the stage, and they would definitely lose miserably if they met a real expert. However, who would have thought that this motley crew of dog meat buns would be able to slaughter their way to this stage? Even the Templar Battle Team, a top-tier battle team that was a hot favorite to win the championship, was defeated by this motley crew. Such a result had a huge impact on the audience, and even the professional players of the major teams. Were the requirements for amateurs nowadays so high? Or was the strength of the professional players too conservative? In any case, it felt like watching Konoha's genin fight each other, and people couldn't help but want to curse out loud. Especially in the third match, the scene where Wang Yu single-handedly fought against the 7 Masters of Templar. It refreshed everyone's view of the experts in Rebirth, and also refreshed the players' view of the Grandmaster of Combat class. Although Yo-Yu Baiming fought twice, this battle was definitely a battle that could be recorded in the history of esports. Could the experts in this game be this strong? How could the Grandmaster of Combat, who could not be helped, be so strong? After watching the match, the minds of the audience were filled with these two questions. The Grandmaster of Combat players who were originally despised for choosing the wrong class all felt proud, as if they were the ones who fought 1 against 7 in the arena. What kind of concept was 1 against 7? In a match, each side could only send up to 20 people. If one person could pin down 7 people, it would be equivalent to 9 people ganging up on 3 people. He was probably the first person in history to possess such terrifying strength. With such an expert overseeing the competition, they would basically win more than half of the normal matches. Of course, the people who were most affected by Wang Yu's strength were not the billions of players from Rebirth in the world, but the last 2 squads that were his opponent. After all, no matter how powerful Wang Yu was, he had nothing to do with the players, let alone any conflict of interest. However, they were in direct opposition to the other 2 teams. After several rounds of matches, there were only 3 teams left standing in the arena. Whether it was 9 Regions team or Pantheon team, they might have to fight against a mob of teams in the following matches. Right now, the motley crew was soaring through the ranks, their momentum flourishing. With a super expert like Wang Yu overseeing them, it could be said that the pressure on the other 2 guilds was enormous. Damn it! Below the arena, 3 Mountains 5 Peaks stared at Wang Yu, who had already walked out of the competition room, and could not help but exclaim, "I didn't see this B***starred so strong in the previous competition. I didn't expect him to be so strong this time. It's only been a few months, and the speed of his improvement is too terrifying." No, no, no. Hearing that, 5 Lakes 4 Seas smiled, waved his hand and said, "It's not that his improvement speed is fast. It's just like what he said, our strength is not enough to see his true strength." This, hearing 5 Lakes 4 Seas words, 3 Mountains 5 Peaks was stunned for a moment, and then immediately reacted. Indeed, in front of Wang Yu, no one could be his opponent. Against players who were weaker than him, there was naturally no need for Wang Yu to use his full strength. The reason why 3 Mountains 5 Peaks could not see such a strong side of Wang Yu could only mean that his own level was not at the level where Wang Yu could display such strength. This was heart-wrenching, heart-wrenching. 3 Mountains 5 Peaks clutched his heart and mumbled to himself, "Do you think he's still hiding even greater strength? Who knows?" 5 Lakes 4 Seas said calmly, "By the looks of it, he really doesn't seem to have reached his limit." F***CK. 3 Mountains 5 Peaks said in shock, If that's really the case, the Templar battle team is about the same level as us. Even they were crushed in 3 rounds, so we probably won't be their match. That's right. 5 Lakes 4 Seas nodded and said, looking at the current situation, perhaps only a battle team with top-notch experts like Pantheon has a chance of beating them. Then what do we do? What else can we do? 5 Lakes 4 Seas shrugged and said, pray that our next opponent isn't them. 3 Mountains 5 Peaks. Having been partners with 5 Lakes 4 Seas for so many years, 3 Mountains 5 Peaks had always thought of 5 Lakes 4 Seas as a very steady and reliable leader. No matter what kind of opponent they faced, he would always be able to make his teammates feel no pressure. However, now that 5 Lakes 4 Seas had actually said such words, 3 Mountains 5 Peaks really felt a little uncertain. At this moment, 3 Mountains 5 Peaks suddenly understood why 5 Lakes 4 Seas had asked him to take the initiative to provoke Wang Yu before the competition. Originally, 3 Mountains 5 Peaks had thought that it was a waste of his talent to exchange with Wang Yu. Looking at it now, if he had really caused a violent incident and banned Wang Yu from the competition, he would have made a huge profit. What a pity! 3 Mountains 5 Peaks shook his head, his face full of regret. However, fortunately, his face was full of regret. These guys didn't know Evildoers Run Wild's temper. If 3 Mountains 5 Peaks had really gotten lucky and succeeded, everyone in the 9 States battle team would probably be in the hospital now. The Wang family didn't lack money. If they didn't participate in the competition, Wang Yu and Wang Yu would at most be young masters at home. Wu Ji and the others also had official civil servants. As for the 9 States battle team, their professional careers would probably end there. There were thousands of paths, but the most important one was to abide by the law. If they had nothing better to do, they would cry for their loved ones. At the same time, in the Pantheon battle team not far away, the Pantheon members were also stunned by Wang Yu's methods. After coming back to their senses, everyone asked Uranus, "Boss, if we were to fight against them in the next round, do we have the confidence to win?" Chapter 1932. These guys from Pantheon had fought against Wang Yu not long ago. At that time, 3 of them from Pantheon had to work together to fight on par with Wang Yu. Therefore, although the Pantheon members knew from the beginning that this seemingly harmless Grandmaster of Combat was very powerful, they still had some confidence in their hearts. However, they never expected this Grandmaster of Combat to be this powerful. Previously, when he fought against 3 of them alone, he was only in his normal state. At that time, although Ares and the other 2 did not use their full strength, the Templar battle squad was not much weaker than the Pantheon battle squad. Even if Ares and the other 2 gave it their all, they would not be able to defeat 7 experts of the same level. Moreover, judging from the situation of the previous battle, Wang Yu was obviously holding back. This was what made the Pantheon members most uneasy. At the thought of becoming enemies with such a ruthless person, even these top experts who had experienced hundreds of battles could not help but feel a little nervous. Hee. Uranus smiled faintly and said, "Don't be afraid. No matter how powerful he is alone. His teammates are nothing to be afraid of." "No way." Ares touched his chin and said doubtfully, "That Evildoers Run Wild and that Archer are also quite skilled." "Archer?" Uranus laughed and said, "It's not surprising that she has seen a lot of her fighting style. Her strength is on par with ours. As for Evildoers Run Wild, Uranus paused and said, "As far as I know, this guy is a businessman. Businessmen are easier to deal with." "Is it you?" Zeus was slightly taken aback and asked in surprise. "Of course." Uranus smiled and nodded. After the break, the last 3 teams walked into the arena. Sitting in their seats, the 3 teams had different expressions. 9 Provinces Battle Squad had no confidence. Because in terms of overall strength, 9 Provinces Battle Squad and Templar Battle Squad were old rivals and were inferior to Pantheon. For several years, 9 Provinces Battle Squad had been defeated by Pantheon. It could not be helped. The European server and the local server were not equal. China was the only country on the local server, while the European server was made up of many European countries. Although there were many players in Huaxia, it was deeply ingrained in the minds of Huaxia people that reading was the most important thing. Playing games was just an unorthodox way of doing things. Therefore, in Huaxia, most people only treated games as a pastime. Very few actually took it as a profession. Furthermore, the investment treatment of Huaxia in the game was not as good as that of the European server. Therefore, the European servers' teams had always been of a high standard. Pantheon, in particular, was the richest club in the world. It gathered a group of the most valuable experts in the industry. For such a top-tier team, any one of them would be a captain-level existence in any other team. The strength of such a team could be imagined. Relatively speaking, the ragtag team was indeed weaker. However, the ragtag team did not play by the rules and was even scarier than Pantheon. No matter how strong Pantheon was, it was only the entire team that was strong. The motley team only had one Wang Yu, but they were almost undefeatable. After all, with a big bug like Wang Yu around, who would dare to pat their chest and say that they could win against the motley team? Compared to the panic of the 9 States team, the attitude of the people from Pantheon was much more indifferent. The 9 States team was an old rival, so Pantheon was more confident. On the other hand, Pantheon already had a strategy to deal with the motley team. No matter who they encountered in the following matches, Pantheon would be able to handle them with ease. At this time, the calmest team was the motley team. This group of sloppy fellows was just like their name suggested. They were a motley crew. It was their first time participating in an international competition. At the beginning, this group of fellows was still a little nervous. However, after a few matches, they quickly recovered their crazy nature. Originally, when the 3 teams stood in the arena, they were watched by the audience. However, when it came to the motley team, this group of fellows pointed at the audience and criticized them. In particular, Mingdu, the uncultured fellow, actually whistled at the audience. As he did so, he said excitedly, "Hey, hey, hey, that girl is not bad. Don't point at her. It's impolite." Wang Yu slapped Mingdu's hand to the side helplessly. He glanced at the audience and said, "Didn't you see that the boyfriend next to the girl is unhappy? I think he said that he wants to throw something to you." Throw what? Mingdu asked Wang Yu with a look of anticipation. He knew that Wang Yu knew a little about lip reading. "Let me see." Wang Yu squinted his eyes and observed for a while. Then, he asked Mingdu with a dumbfounded expression, "What is Mother Lei Lu?" Mingdu was speechless. In order to ensure the audience's viewing experience, the entire arena was using simultaneous interpretation. Although the audience in the arena could not hear clearly what the audience was saying, the audience could clearly hear the conversation between the experts in the arena. Hearing the conversation between Wang Yu and Mingdu, the audience in the arena could not help but laugh out loud. What the F***ck was this group of people? Their style was too low. Those who did not know better would think that they were standing on the stage to watch the competition. Such a group of people with no temperament was simply a mudslide in the esports circle. After all the participating teams were in their positions, the lights in the arena dimmed. Then 2 beams of light descended from the sky. Be it 9 Provinces or Pantheon, they did not want to meet a motley crew of people who did not care about etiquette in this competition. The system seemed to have heard the voices of the 2 teams. After the beams of light flashed, they finally landed on 9 Provinces and Pantheon. The next match was 9 Provinces versus Pantheon. These 2 teams could be said to be the 2 pinnacle of the Asian server and the European server. For so many years, they had been fighting for the position of the world champion. Although 9 Provinces lost more than they won, they were indeed the only team that could compete with the European servers' teams. The competition between these two teams was originally supposed to be the last match. Unexpectedly, it was brought forward. Under the anticipation of the audience, the two teams got up and entered the arena room. Soon, their holographic projections appeared on the arena. Everyone knew that Pantheon was known as the Real Madrid of the esports circle. Without exception, the players in the club were top-notch experts. They could be considered top-notch experts from all over the world. However, when placed in Pantheon, they were only at the average level of ordinary members. Therefore, whether it was the individual strength or the overall strength of the players, 9 provinces in Pantheon were slightly inferior. If they wanted to win the competition, the only hope was to rely on tactics. Tactics were based on the home ground advantage. However, unfortunately, Pantheon was judged by the system to be the home ground of this match. Chapter 1933. As the wealthiest club, Pantheon naturally had top-notch tactical commanders. In a situation where they had no advantage in terms of timing, location, and manpower, the 9 Regions team finally lost the game after nearly 2 hours of exciting battle that absolutely made the audience cry out in excitement. In the end, Pantheon won the right to advance to the finals and compete against the Ragtag team. Looking at the last 2 teams in the arena, the audience was filled with anticipation. Both Motley Crowd and Pantheon were not easy to deal with. Since its establishment, Pantheon had been the pinnacle of esports. Just like the name of their team, the players in Pantheon were all famous god-level players. It was not an exaggeration to call their team Pantheon. Although Pantheon had only been established for a few years and their foundation was far from that of the established clubs, the power of money allowed them to gather the strongest fighting force in the world. As soon as they debuted, they stepped on the Templar Church and stood at the pinnacle of the esports industry as the strongest player. For several years, they stood undefeated and could be said to be the only one in the esports industry. The 2 major teams, Templar Church and 9 States, took turns to challenge them. In the end, they returned with grievances. Their strength was evident. Although Motley Crowd was just a grassroots team and did not have the illustrious record and glory of dominating an area like Pantheon, Motley Crowd had the most terrifying experts in the world. In the last match, Wang Yu defeated 7 people by himself and became famous. He was remembered by all the players in the world. In addition to Wang Yu, evildoers Run Wild and Yang Na were also very strong. With such a configuration, the real strength of Motley Crowd, a small team, became more and more unpredictable. Was a team of god-level players stronger or was a team of god-level players stronger? This was a question that no one dared to come to a conclusion. After all, in a battle between experts, even the experts had no idea, let alone the ordinary players. In the past, as long as Pantheon was there, the result was basically no suspense. This time, the audience finally had a sense of anticipation. After the break, Motley Crowd and Pantheon entered the arena under the watchful eyes of the audience. Hee. When they brushed past each other, Uranus smiled at evildoers Run Wild, and then revealed a meaningful smile at the Ragtag bunch. Humph! Wuji snorted coldly, not to be outdone, and glanced sideways at Uranus. The two's gazes became the only interaction between the 2 teams in this match. After entering the gaming pods, both teams appeared on the stage. After the host briefly introduced the information of both teams and their past results, the finals finally began. As the defending champion team in the past, Pantheon Temple naturally belonged to the home team. According to convention, Pantheon Temple would choose the map for the first match. Logically speaking, the majority of the teams would choose the smallest map for the first match. After all, the 1v1 matches were simple and brutal. This was especially true against a motley crew of dirty players. The smaller the map, the more advantageous it would be for them. Uranus, on the other hand, chose random. As expected of the Pantheon Palace, impressive indeed. Seeing how Uranus chose the map so casually, the audience sighed from the bottom of their hearts. The terrain and scenery were there for the weaker side to turn the tables. After a few matches, everyone knew that the motley crew of the ragtag bunch mainly relied on dirty play. Even so, Uranus still chose random. It was obvious that he was telling everyone that Pantheon was strong and that they were not afraid of any trick. It was also telling the motley crew that Pantheon was a top professional and would never bully amateurs. Humph! On the other hand, Wuji snorted at Uranus' actions. This was because Wuji knew that the motley crew of the ragtag bunch would not be at a disadvantage with Wang Yu's team in the first match. The reason why Uranus did this was to establish his chastity. Even if they lost the first match, he could blame it on the map. Then, the audience would turn around and look down on the motley crew of the ragtag bunch's tactic. After a few flashes, the venue was finally set to City Street. Then, the venue changed to a main city filled with buildings. The City Street map was not huge, almost the same size as the intersection of Yu Huiqing's Central Street. However, due to the surrounding buildings, the scene became a lot more complicated. I'm familiar with this map. Seeing that the scene had changed, the motley crew of the ragtag bunch was eager to give it a try. How about letting me go for this match? Chuanjin had played the game for a long time. Half of the time, they were either being chased or being chased. No one was more professional than the players of Chuanjin when it came to guerrilla warfare in such a scene. Seeing the map filled with buildings, Chuanjin felt as if they had returned home. Even if their opponent was the top professional in the industry, they still wanted to go up and challenge them. With the many years of experience of being a street rat, Chuanjin was like a fish in water when it came to fighting in this kind of terrain. This was an occupational disease of being chased. Stop bullshitting. Wuji waved his hand and interrupted. As soon as you go up, you will fall into Uranus' trap. In the end, Wuji was more alert. The reason why Uranus chose to go up randomly was because as a top professional, Uranus had understood the mentality of the motley crew of ragtag bunch after a few matches. Not only were these guys wretched, but they also loved to be in the limelight. From their fighting style, it was not difficult to see that these guys were a group of gamblers who risked their lives. Otherwise, they would not have left Wang Yu alone in the previous match. After all, this was a top professional competition. Any normal person would not play so big. Gamblers always had the mentality of getting lucky. If the first match was in the ring, the normal players of the motley crew of ragtag bunch would not easily go up to fight Pantheon. However, with the terrain becoming more complicated, the players of the motley crew of ragtag bunch would definitely take the initiative to fight. There was an old saying in Huaxia, "Show the enemy that you are strong in order to seek peace, and show the enemy that you are weak in order to seek war." At this time, it could be said that Uranus' thoughts coincided. Fortunately, the commander of the motley crew, Wuji, was relatively calm. If it were any other team, they would have probably jumped into Uranus's trap. Although the people of the motley crew of ragtag bunch were usually very unconvinced of Wuji, once they were on the battlefield, they had unconditional trust in Wuji. After hearing Wuji's words, everyone was slightly stunned and asked, "Then who will go up first?" "Of course it's safer." Wuji looked back at Yang Na and said, "Miss Qingxue, it's better if you go first." "Understood." Yang Na nodded and pressed the confirmation button next to her seat. Mobile version of the fastest updated website, M. Chapter 1934. With a flash of light, Yang Na was teleported to the arena. At the same time, the contestant from Pantheon also appeared opposite Yang Na. "Yo!" Seeing Yang Na's opponent, the dogs from the motley bunch could not help but boo. Yang Na's opponent was also a female player. None of the female characters in Rebirth were ugly, and their equipment was designed to suit the aesthetic of the players. The girl in front of Yang Na was not only tall, but she was also wearing a white dress with a high ponytail behind her head. She looked capable and had a great temperament. Especially the girl with a shield in one hand and a spear in the other, She looked wild and beautiful. I told you to let me go. What a pity. Mingdu looked at Yang Na's opponent with a look of pity. What's the point of letting you go? To place one's pride could not help but mock. Do you dare to get close? Why not? At most, I'll just die. As for you, do you know what a woman is? Do you know where to touch? Mingdu retorted. Don't talk nonsense. Seeing Mingdu and to place one's pride becoming more and more ridiculous, Wuji frowned and said, This is a tigress. Do you want to die? What's there to be afraid of? It's not like we haven't seen it before. Mingdu and to place one's pride looked at Exquisite Dream at the same time. Exquisite Dream's expression darkened as she began to reload her crossbow. This is Athena, right? Chun Xiang came over and asked as he was more knowledgeable. That's right. This woman is Athena. Wuji nodded. At this time, the host began to introduce the contestants of both sides. As expected, Yang Na's opponent was the legendary Athena. Who's Athena? Wang Yu was always trying to dampen the mood, however. This time, not only Wang Yu, but even Yin Lao Er and the others were interested. Have you heard of Kuyani? Wuji raised his eyebrows as he glanced at Wang Yu, then turned to ask the others. No, then who is it? Wang Yu was still at a loss. In Wang Yu's eyes, the gods in the circle were no different from passers-by. Those who didn't know better would think that he was pretending. F***ck. It's Kuyani. However, when he heard Wuji's words, Yin Lao Er jumped up and said in surprise, The world's best shield warrior. Not bad. Wuji said, That's her. Athena is the code name of the Pantheon. She changed her name after joining the Pantheon last year. No wonder, no wonder. Yin Lao Er sighed. I thought she had retired. Is this woman very powerful? Linglong Meng asked unhappily. It's more than powerful. Yin Lao Er said with admiration, That's the faith of us shield warriors. Although many female players didn't want to admit it, under normal circumstances, there was a gap between the strength of female players and male players. Therefore, the rankings of male players and female players were always separated. For example, the number 1 female fighter, the number 1 female warrior, and so on. This division meant that their rankings were limited to female players. Athena was different. Her title was the world's best shield warrior. It was not limited to gender, it was N01. The shield warrior class was one of the most important classes in any game. For a female player to be able to fight her way through so many male experts and become known as the world's number 1, one could just imagine how powerful she was. In all RPG games, Kuyani was the absolute faith of shield warriors. As a shield warrior, Yin Lao Er was no exception. Tisk! Linglong Meng pursed her lips in annoyance. She raised her hand and shouted, Nana, kill her! Hearing Linglong Meng's voice, Yin Lao Er was confused. What's wrong with her? I can't hear her shouting from here. Second bro. Wuji patted Yin Lao Er's shoulder and said, You're really suitable to be in the front row. You're a real straight man. I mean Lao Er, not second bro. Yin Lao Er glared. Got it, second bro, Wuji said. Women, especially beautiful women, would instinctively resist girls who were prettier than them. In the arena, Yang Na looked at the beautiful girl opposite her expressionlessly. As soon as the match began, Yang Na raised her crossbow and shot at Athena. However, shield warriors were the bane of all agility classes. Both assassins and archers were completely dominated by shield warriors. Although shield warriors couldn't catch up to them, it was very difficult for them to hurt shield warriors. Athena raised the shield in her left hand slightly to protect herself from the incoming arrows. Clang, 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 clang. After a series of crashing sounds, Yang Na's arrows were all blocked and fell to the ground. However, Yang Na didn't expect these arrows to hurt her opponent. Just as Athena raised her shield to defend, Yang Na's figure flashed and rushed at Athena. It must be said that Yang Na was also a typical non-mainstream archer. Other archers would run as far as possible to pull away from their opponents, but Yang Na was different. She would always find ways to get close to her opponent. Fortunately, after a few matches, Athena had some understanding of Yang Na's style. Otherwise, even an expert like her would be caught off guard. Yang Na's movement speed was quite fast, and she rushed in front of Athena in a flash. Athena swung her shield and lowered her head to hit Yang Na with shield bash. Yang Na dodged calmly. Athena only saw a figure flash in front of her, and in the next moment, Yang Na appeared behind Athena. Yang Na was very good at dealing with shield warriors. After all, shield warriors were relatively clumsy, and their turning speed was relatively slow. The opponent couldn't hurt them from the front, but it wasn't easy to dodge an attack from the back. Yang Na raised her crossbow and aimed at the back of Athena's head. A white light gathered on the crossbow. Shock arrow. An archer's main control skill, which could knock back and stun the target. But who knew that at this moment, Athena didn't even look back. She swung her spear backward and swept it toward Yang Na's head. Yang Na had been practicing martial arts for many years. Although she wasn't as sensitive to killing intent as Wang Yu, her reaction speed wasn't bad. Just as Athena's spear was about to hit Yang Na's head, Yang Na hurriedly leaned back and did a backflip to avoid Athena's attack. Athena also took advantage of Yang Na's dodge to turn around. Without waiting for Yang Na to stand firm, Athena threw the spear in her right hand at Yang Na without the slightest pause. It immediately flew out of her hand and flew toward Yang Na's face. Well, although a fight between women wasn't as hot-blooded as a fight between men, it was really frightening. How much hatred and resentment must there be between the two of them? Seeing that Yang Na's head was about to be pierced by the spear, Yang Na twisted her legs, and her body twisted in a strange arc to avoid Athena's spear. When Athena saw this, she smiled and pulled at the air with her right hand. Clang! At this moment, Yang Na heard the sound of iron chains. Chapter 1935. Then, an indistinct chain appeared between Athena and the spear. Athena pulled and pulled, appearing beside Yang Na as if she had teleported. At the same time, she raised her shield and used taunt on Yang Na. Taunt couldn't be dodged or defended. At such a close distance, it was too late for Yang Na to react. She was immediately pulled in front of Athena. Athena's other hand raised her shield and smashed it down. Bang! A muffled sound rang out. The shield landed squarely on Yang Na's head, stunning her on the spot. After knocking Yang Na out, Athena didn't stop. She pulled out the spear from the ground and stabbed it at Yang Na. Yang Na was sent flying. Athena raised her shield again, lifting Yang Na up. Then, she stabbed the spear in her right hand diagonally upward. The spear turned into a series of afterimages, hitting Yang Na's body one after another. A string of damage numbers floated above Yang Na's head. Although a shield warrior's damage wasn't high, an archer's HP wasn't high either. After a series of attacks, Yang Na's HP bar had been reduced by half. Without waiting for Yang Na to land, Athena's spear began to charge up. The moment Yang Na landed, Athena's right hand, which had finished charging up, thrust the spear forward. Boom! A dazzling aura shot towards Yang Na, sticking close to the ground. Awakening, invincible! A line of large words floated above Athena's head. As an awakening skill of an expert like Athena, there was no doubt that it was invincible. The powerful Do Chi carved a deep trench in the ground, and the scorching flames crashed into Yang Na's body. After taking a series of combo attacks from Athena, Yang Na was already in a critical state. Being hit by such a powerful skill, it was certain that she wouldn't survive. Anyone who had watched Ragtag Team's matches would have seen Yang Na's strength. Although Yang Na was a female player, her performance was extremely high. She was even stronger than a top-tier professional player. Now, she was killed by Athena in less than 5 minutes. It was clear how strong Athena was, as expected of the world's #1 shield warrior. However, just when the audience thought that Yang Na was dead for sure, a question mark popped up in Athena's head. As an expert, Athena's feeling of being hit by her skill told her that her ultimate skill had missed. Not good. Without a second thought, Athena turned to the left, grabbed her shield, and turned around. Pooh! But it was too late. Yang Na, who was behind Athena, had already pounced on her face and launched an attack. A crossbow bolt pierced Athena's face. Athena's temperament was cold and elegant, and her appearance was beautiful. However, at this moment, there was an arrow in her head, and her head was swaying back and forth. The scene was truly irresistible. Athena naturally knew how embarrassing she was. She was extremely angry and subconsciously covered her face with her shield. Yang Na, on the other hand, moved to Athena's side, raised her crossbow, and shot another arrow at Athena's face. It wasn't hard to see that the two women on the stage seemed to be in a frenzy. They kept hitting each other's faces and wanted nothing more than to disfigure each other. Wake up, girls, this is a game. Even if you splash acid on your face, you won't be disfigured. As an archer, Yang Na's main attribute was agility, so her movement speed was extremely fast. Athena, because of her class's speed disadvantage, could barely keep up with Yang Na's movement speed. However, once Yang Na used her ancestral movement technique, her entire body was erratic, and no one knew where she would appear. This made it difficult for Athena to guard against her. After one round, Athena's face was full of crossbow bolts. Her beautiful and aloof face was full of crossbow bolts, and she looked like a hedgehog. Haha, what the F***ck. Seeing this, the members of the motley crowd battle team started laughing so hard that they were out of breath. F***ck, F***ck. Is this woman the devil? Does she have to be so ruthless? As for the audience, they were even more frightened. In the past few matches, Yang Na had thoroughly shown the audience what it meant to be cruel. Really, her role had limited everyone's imagination of what it meant to be cruel. Think back to Yang Na's battles. The first time she faced an enemy, she directly pierced her opponent's eye. The second time she faced an enemy, she tortured her opponent to death with arrows. The third time she faced an enemy, she greeted her opponent's face with arrows, and turned a beautiful woman into a hedgehog. The so-called tragedy was to tear a beautiful thing apart for others to see. For a woman, especially a beautiful woman, Yang Na's behavior was definitely worse than death. Of course, this matter couldn't be blamed on Yang Na. Athena was also a bit too much. She first used her shield to hit Yang Na's face. Yang Na was a petty person, so of course she would take revenge. Everyone in Chuanjin was honest people. Although everyone had their own personality flaws, their attitude towards hatred was to take revenge on the spot. If they couldn't take revenge on the spot, they would take revenge every day. After being in Chuanjin for so long, Yang Na had long been assimilated. After a few more arrows, the health bar on Athena's head was also reduced by half. Seeing that there was no place to attack her opponent's face, Yang Na couldn't help but hesitate. This hesitation didn't matter, and Athena finally found an opportunity to counterattack. Athena let out a roar and the ground beneath their feet cracked. The crossbow in Yang Na's hand shook slightly and fell to the ground. Raging wars in all directions. What's going on? Seeing this scene, Wang Yu was puzzled and asked the others. Wang Yu had done things like stealing weapons before, but Wang Yu had done it with pure skill. However, Athena just roared and took away her opponent's weapon. This was a little too ridiculous. As a martial artist, her weapon was her life. It was impossible for Yang Na to lose her grip on her weapon after being yelled at by someone. Disarm. It's disarm. Wu Ji, who was by the side, explained. Disarm was an extremely rare skill effect in Rebirth. This effect could temporarily disable the opponent from using their weapon. Who would have thought that Athena's raging wars in all directions would have such a terrifying effect? For a moment, Wu Ji was worried about Yang Na. After all, Yang Na wasn't any other class. Among all the classes, archers were definitely the class that relied on weapons the most. Without a weapon, mages and warriors could still cast spells with their bare hands. Without a weapon, could an archer use arrows as a hidden weapon? That's a little too ridiculous. Seeing that Yang Na had lost her weapon, Athena casually waved the arrow off her face. She glared at Yang Na and gritted her teeth. "I'll return the humiliation just now." As she spoke, Athena raised the spear in her right hand and flicked the crossbow away. She then swung the shield in her left hand at Yang Na. Humph! Yang Na snorted coldly, her eyes narrowed into slits. Chapter 1936. Is the show about to start? Seeing the expression on Yang Na's face, Wang Yu and the others revealed a look of anticipation. Having been partners with Yang Na for so long, everyone knew her little habit. She was usually well behaved, but once she narrowed her eyes, it meant that she was angry. Angry women were always terrifying to the point of being unreasonable. As expected, Yang Na met Athena's shield with her bare fist. Damn! How can an archer play like this? Seeing Yang Na's unreasonable behavior, the audience's eyeballs almost popped out of their socket. It was understandable for an archer to play melee. After all, online games had developed for so many years, and there were all kinds of eccentric players. But an archer didn't even have a weapon, and yet she was fighting a shield warrior with her bare hands. This was a complete disregard for the rules of the system. Shield warriors were known as the kings of melee. Although their damage output wasn't high, they were extremely powerful in PvP. Not only did they have high defense and priority, but they could also restrain the strongest solo class, the assassin. No other melee class was stronger than shield warriors in melee combat. An archer threw away her weapon and fought a shield warrior with her bare hands. This was crazy. However, what everyone didn't know was that Yang Na was the same kind of person as Wang Yu's evildoers run wild. Archery was just a hobby for her, and fighting was her ultimate goal. Facing the oncoming shield, Yang Na moved her left hand forward and her right hand behind. She grabbed the edge of the shield with both hands and pulled, leveraging the force of the shield. At the same time, she lowered her body and brushed past the edge of the shield to dodge the attack. Ouch! Athena was a gaming expert, not a kung fu expert. Being pulled by Yang Na, the impact of the shield and the force of Yang Na's pull added together, and Athena was immediately caught off guard. Athena's figure swayed, and she lost her balance and fell forward. At this time, Yang Na twisted her legs and moved behind Athena in a strange way. Before Athena could react, Yang Na raised her foot and kicked Athena's butt. Athena, who had lost her balance, was trying her best to quick recover. Who knew that she would suffer another kick in the butt, so she was involuntarily kicked to the ground by Yang Na. Yang Na followed closely behind. She stepped on Athena's right shoulder and pulled Athena's ponytail in her right hand. Then, Yang Na's left hand touched her thigh, pulled out a crossbow bolt, and inserted it between Athena's left shoulder and neck. Although Yang Na's strength wasn't as great as Athena's, the position that Yang Na was attacking was called the scapula. The scapula was also known as the scapula. It was a joint that was specially used to dispel people's strength. Rebirth was a holographic simulation online game. Although it wasn't 100% realistic, many details were well done. Without the feeling of pain, the scapula was not very useful. However, Athena's scapula was pierced, and Yang Na was pulling her braid. It was difficult for her to hold the weapon with both hands to attack. If you're not convinced, you can try it on your own girlfriend. Anyway, Uncle Nyo can't guarantee the consequences. Of course, you have to have a girlfriend first. As the world's #1 shield warrior, Athena could be said to be arrogant. It was such a humiliation to be pinned to the ground. However, no matter how hard Athena struggled, she couldn't hit Yang Na. Is this woman stupid? Seeing that Athena was pinned to the ground by Yang Na and had her hair pulled, Mingdu was speechless. Can't she just get up? With her strength, it shouldn't be difficult. Wang Yu smiled and said, she can't get up. The Yang family's kung fu is the best at smoothing things over. What do you mean? It would have been better if Wang Yu didn't say anything. His explanation made everyone even more confused. Her strength has been dispelled. At this time, evildoers run wild gave the answer helplessly. It seemed that it was a bit difficult to expect this group of mortals to understand the theory. Although they still didn't understand much, they could roughly guess what had happened. Athena's brute force must have been dispelled by Yang Na using some kind of kung fu. If it was in the past, no one would believe it. However, after interacting with Wang Yu for a long time, they had no choice but to believe it. They can't just keep stepping on them, right? Mingdu rubbed his chin and said, even if they are beauties, we don't have to come here to watch wrestling. That's impossible. Wang Yu said, as long as the opponent is willing to put down the weapon in their hand, they can turn around without any obstacles. This is called disarming. F***ck. Is that so? Hearing Wang Yu's explanation, everyone sighed. It seemed that ordinary people were far from being able to play tricks in front of a kung fu master. As soon as Wang Yu finished speaking, Athena seemed to hear Wang Yu's words. She loosened her grip and threw the spear and shield in her hands to the side. Without a weapon, Athena's free hands flipped backward and grabbed Yang Na's leg. Yang Na's strength was inferior to Athena's, and her leg was caught by Athena's chest. Caught off guard, Yang Na fell to the ground. Athena took the opportunity to sit up and face to face with Yang Na. She stretched out her hand and slapped Yang Na's cheeks twice. Pia, pia. The crisp sound pierced the ears of the audience. Whoa! Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened, and their faces revealed a surprised expression. Hitting someone in the face was not an option, let alone a woman. Slapping her opponent twice in front of everyone's eyes seemed to have driven Athena mad. Yang Na wasn't one to show weakness. In her anger, she didn't care that she was a martial artist. She aimed her hands at Athena's face and grabbed. Rip! Yang Na's claws left 10 bloody marks on Athena's cheek. 666. The audience began to cheer. The two girls' attacks were beyond the scope of a game battle. It was just a competition, and winning or losing was only a matter of points. But now, the two were fighting for real. Go to hell! Athena roared. Relying on her great strength, she pushed Yang Na's arm away and punched Yang Na's chest. Fortunately, Yang Na's chest was small, and the injury wasn't too serious. She only rolled backwards. Yang Na's hands weren't idle either. The moment she rolled, she grabbed Athena's dress. Rip! There was another strange sound. Athena's dress was torn open by Yang Na, and her snow-white skin was exposed. Ugh! Looking at Athena's chest, the audience fell into deep thought. Couldn't they think about it? Fashion was expensive, and women's fashion was only made of rags. Based on area, it was more expensive than gold. Yang Na's claws had destroyed 30% of Athena's fashion. What a waste! Chapter 1937. There was a reason why there were so few female players in top-tier tournaments. After all, a tournament of this level required a high level of mental fortitude. Players who could participate were all rational enough. Comparatively speaking, females were more emotional. After so many years of esports competition, there were many female players who cried on the spot after being abused. Such an unstable state of mind had a huge impact on their performance. No matter how strong a player was, it was useless if they could not perform consistently. That was why top-tier clubs rarely signed female players. Athena was an exception. This girl had been through hundreds of battles. Whether it was her strength or her state of mind, she was steady. She had never had a problem for so many years. Who knew that she would end up like this in the first match? They were supposed to be two valiant and formidable-looking girls, and the match should have been particularly pleasing to the eye. But now, the two of them were unarmed and barehanded in an epic melee fight. You give me a slap, I'll give you a slap. You pull my hair, I'll tear your clothes. The scene was too horrible to look at. It was exactly the same as an original wife beating up a mistress on the street. Everyone who was watching was dumbfounded. What kind of fighting style was this? It was too down to earth. Seeing that the match was getting more and more unreliable, the system could not bear to watch any longer. It gave the two a yellow card for being uncivilized. Seeing the two of them leave the stage, the audience let out a sigh of relief. This kind of fighting style was too scary. Even when she was sent off the stage, Yang Na was still angry. She protested, "System, pull my hand or I'll kill her." Yang Na was in a fit of anger, but no one dared to provoke her. Everyone lowered their heads in silence. In the end, it was still Wuji who was reliable. "Alright, I know you're good. But you might not win even if you keep fighting. The system is helping you." "Nonsense." Yang Na's face darkened. "I can fight 7 or 8 people at that level with one hand. If you don't believe me, let's try after the match." "Forget it." Hearing Yang Na's words, Wuji's face turned green. This girl was usually a lady. Why did she become so reckless when she was angry? She even wanted to PK someone in real life. But it made sense. After being slapped twice in front of so many people, no one would be able to act like nothing had happened. Otherwise, it would be too shameless. "I'm talking about the game," Wuji explained. "She's a shield bearer. She has high HP and defense. Even if she's unarmed, she's still a melee class. You're an archer. It would be strange if you could win against her." This, after being lectured by Wuji, Yang Na finally calmed down. In fact, if it were a real melee fight, it wouldn't be too difficult for Yang Na to kill Athena with her skills. However, Yang Na was furious. How could an archer possibly win a wrestling match with a shield warrior? After all, archers were a class that relied on their weapons. Compared to melee classes, they were far inferior. Although the system didn't have any intention of pulling the strings, it was still beneficial to Yang Na. Humph! This bastard! On Pantheon's side, Athena was infuriated as well. This was the first time she had been bullied like this in the gaming circle for so many years. Although shield warriors were known to have the strongest armor and receive the most vicious attacks, they still needed to maintain their dignity. Yet, a mere archer actually dared to engage in melee combat with him. Furthermore, his attacks were neither light nor heavy. This was too much. Nominally, Wang Yu was the captain of Motley Crowd. In fact, the real captain was still Wuji. The captain's biggest responsibility was to appease the team members. Uranus was also sweating profusely. It took him a long time to appease Athena's anger. It couldn't be helped. Shield bearers were the most important class in a team battle. If Athena didn't adjust her emotions and went into battle, Pantheon would definitely be at a disadvantage. After appeasing the two hot-tempered girls, the system reminded both teams again, "Please choose your next player." "Old devil, you're up for the second round." Wuji pointed at evildoers Run Wild without hesitation and confirmed the next player. At this point, the strength of Motley Crowd had been seen through. They were almost transparent. In the face of an opponent like Pantheon, there was no need to hide at all. They just had to follow the simplest and most brutal order and rush forward. Anyway, tricks would not be of much use in front of an expert like Pantheon. With a flash of light, evildoers Run Wild and his opponent appeared in the arena. Evildoers Run Wild's opponent was holding a scythe-like weapon with a chain tied to the handle. It looked very strange, but it was not strange for a disciple of a martial arts family who dabbled in all kinds of weapons. Scythe was a strange weapon and belonged to the soft rope category. What surprised evildoers Run Wild was that there was such a thing in the game. "This person looks familiar." Wang Yu rubbed his chin and stared at evildoers Run Wild's opponent. He muttered to himself, "I really want to fight with him." "Really? Bao San, who was next to Wang Yu, was surprised. What was the result? What do you think? Wang Yu raised his eyebrows and asked. Awesome. Bao San gave a sincere thumbs up and sighed. I didn't expect Aries to be defeated by you. Aries? Wang Yu thought for a while and said, this kid has such a tongue-twisting name. So you know him too? Of course. Bao San said confidently. This is the world's #1 warrior. How can I not know him? World's #1. Wang Yu was speechless. Don't you have any shame? You said that the shield bearer was the world's #1, and now this warrior is also the world's #1? Are they all #1 in Pantheon? You're right about that. Wu Ji smiled and said, how do you think the name Pantheon came about? No doubt, the players in their team are all the world's #1 in each class. TCH. Without waiting for Wang Yu to say anything, To Place One's Pride curled his lips in disdain and looked at his fist. I don't believe it. Are they also the world's #1 in Grandmaster of Combat? Well. Everyone looked at Wang Yu meaningfully and quickly said, I'm afraid they're far from it. To Place One's Pride was bragging. It was obvious that everyone was looking at Wang Yu and felt depressed. To Place One's Pride did not dare to challenge Wang Yu's strength. He could only add resentfully, they won't be the world's #2. Of course. Everyone nodded and turned their attention to evildoers run wild in the arena. The implication was that he would not even be the team's #2, let alone the world's #2. F***ck. To Place One's Pride was in tears. Just as everyone was talking nonsense, the two on the stage had already started fighting. Weapon battles were different from shield bearers. As a damage output class, weapon battles were about attacking first. Ares swung his scythe and slashed at evildoers run wild from 5 meters away. Chapter 1938. His attack range is so far? Seeing Ares attack evildoers run wild from 5 meters away, everyone was shocked. The warrior class had high attack and defense. Pro-level experts usually added agility, so their speed was not weak. The only flaw was their attack range. Therefore, the warrior class had always been afraid of being kited by ranged classes, especially ice mages, who could control and attack at the same time. They were basically the warrior's nemesis. However, Ares' normal attack range was a full 5 meters. A warrior with such long arms was unheard of. One had to know that the basic casting distance of a mage was only 10 meters. With such long arms, a warrior was not giving a chance to a ranged class. Of course, evildoers run wild was not an ordinary person. Such an attack was useless against evildoers run wild. Evildoers run wild grabbed Ares' scythe in his hand. Immediately after, evildoers run wild exerted force in his arm and yanked backwards. Evildoers run wild was famous for his extraordinary strength. Moreover, the pugilist's ferocious tiger strike was a grab skill. Not to mention Ares' agility, even a full-powered warrior would not be able to withstand evildoers run wild's pull. Crash! With a crash, Ares, who was 5 meters away, was pulled in front of evildoers run wild. Without waiting for Ares to land on the ground, the evildoer Huang Xing threw a punch at Ares' head with his other hand. That's it. Seeing Ares being pulled by evildoers run wild just like that, everyone could not help but feel a little regretful. Who was evildoers run wild? Since the last match, no one had been able to withstand 3 punches from evildoers run wild. He was nicknamed the Farmer's 3 punches. With this pull and punch, the combination of the two forces would definitely shatter Ares' head with 1 punch. Seeing Ares' stunning performance in the match, they did not expect him to be defeated. However, Ares was known as the #1 warrior in the world. Naturally, he was not easy to deal with. Just when the audience thought that evildoers run wild would pull Ares in front of him and punch him to death, Ares' left hand faced the ground, and a wave of combat energy slashed the ground. The recoil of the aura cut forced Ares to make a turn in midair, brushing past evildoers run wild and landing behind evildoers run wild. Seeing that Ares dodged his attack, evildoers run wild was a little surprised, so he immediately turned around and attacked. Ares lowered his head and flashed past the other side of evildoers run wild. Each of them grabbed one end of the scythe and twisted it in the opposite direction. The scythe was silently tied to evildoers run wild's body. Ares, who had successfully circled around evildoers run wild, made a strange sound. The scythe that tied evildoers run wild suddenly tightened like a python, binding evildoers run wild tightly. At this time, Ares stretched his left hand behind his back and grabbed another scythe that shone brightly. This scythe lock was clearly a divine artifact, and it was much better than the one that was used to bind the evildoer rampage. How insidious! Seeing that evildoers run wild was tied up, Wuji sighed helplessly. In terms of conduct, evildoers run wild was a wily old fox, but his combat IQ was far from Wang Yu's. Moreover, evildoers run wild put all his points into strength, so his agility was far from Wang Yu's. Obviously, Ares also knew this, so he prepared two weapons. The first was thrown out to tie up evildoers run wild's main control, and the other was the main damage output. As the evildoer Heng Xing was not agile enough, he was tied up like a crab before he realized what was going on. Humph, humph, humph. Seeing that it was so easy to tie up evildoers run wild, Ares' face showed a proud smile. He immediately swung the scythe in his right hand a few times, stretched it forward, and the scythe slashed at evildoers run wild's head. Evildoers run wild was not in a hurry. He tilted his body and dodged the flying scythe. When Ares saw this, he pulled back the scythe and slashed at evildoers run wild's neck from behind. Evildoers run wild's head tilted slightly, and at the same time, he leaned back. Clang! There was a sound of gold and iron colliding. Ares felt numb between his thumb and index finger, and he almost stumbled. Yee! Seeing this scene, Ares could not help but widen his eyes. The people of Pantheon below the stage were also shocked. Although Ares didn't see what was going on, the others saw it clearly. Just as the scythe slashed at evildoers run wild's head tilted, and he used the iron chain tied to his neck to block Ares' scythe. Blocking was a necessary skill for masters. If it was a frontal attack, everyone present could easily block the scythe with the iron chain. However, Ares' scythe was hooked from behind, and evildoers run wild was able to accurately block it. This judgment was simply shocking. Count yourself lucky. In this situation, Ares thought that evildoers run wild was lucky, so he pulled back the scythe again and continued to attack evildoers run wild. Although Ares was more flexible, Ares was standing at a distance to attack. His attacks did not turn, so masters at the level of evildoers run wild could judge the landing point of the attack. He only needed to move his body slightly to easily block it. Ding ding dang dang. Ares slashed 5 or 6 times in a row, and all of them were blocked by evildoers run wild. Ares' face turned black directly. Hee hee. Evildoers run wild saw this and laughed. It's just a small trick. Do you really think it can deal with me? As he said this, evildoers run wild exerted force with both arms. Zap! At the same time, the iron chain that bound evildoers run wild straightened and made a harsh friction sound. What are you trying to do? Ares' heart skipped a beat, and he could not help but take a step back. Duong! At this moment, with a loud sound, the iron chain on evildoers run wild was directly broken. What the F***CK? Seeing this scene, the crowd suddenly erupted. The chain scythe was a weapon. Although it was not as strong as a shield of a shield warrior, it was not easy to damage it. In particular, the iron chain that bound evildoers run wild was as thick as the mouth of a bottle. It looked extremely strong at first glance, but unexpectedly, it was directly broken by evildoers run wild. The shock of this scene was no less than breaking a shield with bare hands. What the F***ck is adding points to strength this crazy? Go! After breaking the iron chain, evildoers run wild grabbed the scythe and swung it fiercely. Whoosh! The scythe in the hands of evildoers run wild slashed at Ares with a powerful sound. Clatter! Ares gritted his teeth, pulled his arms, and the chain scythe in his hands protected in front of him. Clang! A clear sound. The scythe was blocked by the iron chain and bounced dozens of meters away. As for Ares, it was as if he was hit by a train. He could not stand steadily and only managed to stabilize his body after taking 7 or 8 steps back. Chapter 1939. Just as Ares steadied himself, evildoers run wild had already rushed over with heavy footstep. Ran we? N. W? 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 R. N. W? Aina Kamwen, he was a few meters away from Ares. Evildoers run wild leaped and used collapsing fist dash. Ares' eyes tightened. He swung the scythe in his hand up and down, aiming at evildoers run wild's chin. The reason why grandmasters of combat were criticized, other than the fact that they could not do all 10 skills, the most disgusting thing was that jumping had an enhanced effect on attacking or releasing skills. When 2 people were fighting, the most taboo was to levitate in the air. Jumping to attack was basically sending one's head to the sky. Unless the attack was extremely confident, most grandmasters of combat would rather not enhance their attacks than take the initiative to jump. Evildoers run wild did not know Qigong. In the face of the flying scythe, he could not avoid it and could only reach out to grab it. Upon seeing this, Ares immediately opened his mouth and spat out a cloud of black mist. The black mist expanded rapidly. Just as evildoers run wild was about to grab the scythe, the black mist had already expanded to evildoers run wild and engulfed him in an instant. At the same time, the scythe in Ares' hand shook and the scythe was retrieved. Hidden fog! After retrieving the scythe, Ares held up his left hand, and the black mist wrapped around evildoers run wild and flew into the sky. The spreading of the black mist did not stop. When the black mist flew to a high altitude, it had already filled the entire sky of the arena. The sky was dark, like a dark cloud covering half of it. Sky-destroying cut. Following Ares' shout, the scythe in Ares' hand flew straight up and slashed at the dark cloud in the sky. At the same time, a line of words flashed above Ares' head. Profound meaning, hidden fog-destroying cut. In Ares' eyes, the reason why evildoers run wild was able to block his weapon was that this guy had quick reflexes and could block his attack according to the angle of his attack. Now that evildoers run wild was surrounded and controlled by the black fog, not only could he not move, but he had also completely lost his vision. This time, he would definitely not be able to avoid this ultimate skill. Whoosh! Under everyone's gaze, Ares' scythe turned into a cold light and cut through the sky. The dark clouds in the sky were like a piece of black cloth that had been cut into 2 under Ares' attack. Putting aside the power of this skill for now, the visual effect was absolutely unique. Splitting the dark clouds in the sky with a single slash was like splitting the heavens and earth, shocking everyone. However, just as evildoers run wild was cut in half, the scythe in his hand suddenly sank. Ares was shocked and quickly raised his head. He saw evildoers run wild in the sky grabbing the scythe with one hand. Under the pull of the two's strength, the chain straightened. How is this possible? Seeing that not only did evildoers run wild not die, but he also grabbed his weapon again, Ares' eyes almost popped out. He obviously had no vision. How could it be blocked? This was illogical. What he didn't know was that although evildoers run wild was not as talented as Wang Yu, he was also a rising star in the younger generation of Kung Fu. With his perception, it was easy to perceive an attack flying in front of him. Ares used the logic of ordinary people to deal with evildoers run wild. Of course, it was asking to be humiliated. Earth-splitting kick. In midair, Evildoer's Run Wild pulled the scythe in his hand, and his whole body fell at a very fast speed. At the same time, his feet emitted a terrifying light. The release of Earth-splitting kick and Thunder Stomp were almost the same. The difference was that Earth-splitting kick was an Earth attribute, and the special effect was a knockback, while Thunder Stomp was a Thunder attribute. After releasing the skill, Evildoer's Run Wild suddenly fell from the sky, and in an instant, his big foot stepped on Ares' face. Ares wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Bang! With a loud noise, Ares was trampled on by Evildoer's Run Wild, lying on the ground, and his head was trampled into the ground. Boom! When Evildoer's Run Wild landed, the ground trembled, and Ares, who was lying on the ground, was shaken and sent flying. One move. No one knew where the audience learned this bad habit, but they loved to play the supporting role. As soon as Evildoer's Run Wild hit, everyone began to count. Hell's Fire Wheel. Without waiting for Ares to fall, Evildoer's Run Wild jumped and grabbed Ares in midair. Then, Evildoer's Run Wild exerted force in his arms, and his body leaned back. The two of them spun and flew high. 2 moves. The audience continued to jeer. When the two of them flew to the highest point, the HP bar above Ares' head was less than a third, and he was also stunned by Evildoer's Run Wild. Looking at the ground, Evildoer's Run Wild flipped Ares, who was in his arms, and Ares suddenly fell headfirst. Profound martial lianhua. A line of words flashed in Evildoer's Run Wild's eyes, and he dragged Ares down from the sky. Boom! The two of them landed, and the ground was cracked by Evildoer's Run Wild's stomp. As for Ares, he was upside down, and Evildoer's Run Wild threw him into the ground. Wu Lianhua had been used by Wang Yu during a Qinggong mission before, but at that time Wang Yu used it as Kung Fu. This time, in the hands of Evildoer's Run Wild, it was in profound skill. Wang Yu could already beat the boss half to death without the system's skill enhancement, let alone Evildoer's Run Wild, who was using the profound skill of a Grandmaster of Combat. 3 moves. Under the jeering of the audience, Ares' HP bar was emptied on the spot, and he turned into a stream of light and disappeared from the arena. In the second round, the motley crew, Evildoer's Run Wild won, and the current score was 1-0. Boss, this is what you did? Seeing that Ares was killed by Evildoer's Run Wild, the members of Pantheon turned their heads and looked at Uranus with a dark expression. F***ck, he's so ruthless. Is this bastard going to take the money without doing anything? With the motley crew's style, it was not unusual for them to do such a thing. Don't worry, don't worry. Uranus wiped his sweat and said, it's an act, so it has to be realistic. Otherwise the gap will be too big. Realistic? Are you sure? Everyone was skeptical. Realistic? Absolutely realistic. Uranus said, he signed the contract, would he dare to go back on his word? Let's see how he's going to survive in the industry. Is that so? Then let's see his next match. Hearing that he had signed the contract, the others were relieved. Fixing matches was not a common thing in the industry. Although it was against the rules, once there was a contract, if one did not do anything after receiving money, he would be despised by everyone in the industry. Let's see if any team would dare to hire such a dishonest person in the future. With the influence of Pantheon, with such an exaggeration, Evildoer's Run Wild would definitely not be able to compete for the rest of his life. To be able to become the captain of a strong team like Pantheon, Uranus's methods were quite ruthless. On the motley crew's side, Wuji could not help but smirk when he saw how Evildoer's Run Wild threw Ares to death. P.S. Fellow readers, I'm Immortal Iron Ox. I recommend a free app that supports downloading, listening to books, 0 ads, and multiple reading mode. Dear readers, please pay attention to it. Chapter 1940. In the first match, the Ragtag team continued to use their usual 3-pronged strategy. In the third match, They unsurprisingly used their strongest move, Wang Yu. Pantheon had also expected this, so they didn't deliberately choose a player for the third match. Everyone had witnessed Wang Yu's strength in the previous match. He was able to completely suppress the 7 heroes of the Templar battle team all by himself. Although the players from Pantheon were strong, their individual strength was only slightly stronger than the players from the Templar battle team. In terms of one-on-one duels, Wang Yu was definitely the undisputed number 1 in the world. No one present could surpass him. The Pantheon players didn't dare to doubt this. Since they were going to lose anyway, it didn't matter who they sent. Uranus thought for a while and went to the arena himself. It wasn't unreasonable for Uranus to be the captain of the Pantheon team. The Pantheon players were all famous experts and treasured their faces very much. Although they knew that Wang Yu was strong and it wasn't embarrassing to lose to him, no one wanted to be slapped in the face. Of course, Uranus knew this, so he went to the arena himself and didn't put his subordinates in a difficult position. His behavior made the others feel good about him. When the audience saw Uranus and Wang Yu appear in the arena at the same time, they were filled with anticipation. It was needless to say how strong Wang Yu was. Regardless of whether the ragtag team won the championship, the title of the world's number 1 expert would definitely belong to someone else. Uranus was known as Firmament's Light and was the captain of an all-star super team like Pantheon. If the Pantheon players represented the Pantheon, then Uranus would be the lord of the Pantheon. To be able to be the boss of this group of gods, one could imagine his strength. For these two to meet in the finals in a one-on-one duel, it was definitely an epic battle between kings. It was the pinnacle battle between the king of the previous generation and the king of the next generation. Such a high-level competition was naturally worthy of the attention of everyone. For the audience, it was worth the ticket price to be able to watch this match. After entering the arena, the two stood on the street. Uranus looked serious as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Wang Yu's expression was calm and dignified. With a gust of wind, the countdown ended and the match began. Wang Yu's eyes narrowed as she leaped toward Uranus. Just as everyone was waiting to see the outcome of the match, Uranus saw Wang Yu rushing over and subconsciously took a few steps back. He quickly raised his hands and shouted, "I'm willing to admit defeat." Pfft! Hearing Uranus' words, the audience spat out a mouthful of blood. Motherf asterisk her, what the hell? Everyone is waiting to see you fight to the death in the arena. UF asterisk king admit defeat. It was as though the table had been kicked over by someone when they were about to start a game of mahjong. One could imagine the emotions of the audience. They could not wait to rush onto the stage, press Uranus to the ground and give him a good beating. The members of the 9 Provinces team who had yet to leave were also puzzled. F***ck, what the hell is Uranus doing? Weren't you very arrogant when you were beating us? Why are you terrified when you see this kid? It should be a thought. 3 Mountains 5 Peaks said with certainty, I heard that experts don't even need to fight. They can fight for 300 rounds with just their thoughts. Is that true? Why can't I? The members of the 9 Provinces team were at a loss. In terms of strength, the members of the 9 Provinces team were not much weaker than Uranus. Maybe it's because you guys are not strong enough. 3 Mountains 5 Peaks started to show off. Forget it. 5 Lakes 4 Seas was speechless. How old are you to be so chinibu? It's obvious that Uranus doesn't want to reveal his trump card. Hiding his strength? 3 Mountains 5 Peaks mocked mercilessly. Although that Iron Ox is not a good guy with his strength, what difference does it make if Uranus hides his strength? Humph. What do you know? 5 Lakes 4 Seas rolled his eyes at 3 Mountains 5 Peaks. At the same time, Wuji was also explaining to the Chuanjin team, with Old Cow's strength, it's useless for Pantheon to win this match head-on. They can only take him by surprise. Uranus is not only hiding his strength, he doesn't even want Old Cow to know about his class. F***ck, that's too treacherous. Everyone pointed their middle fingers at Uranus. However, Wuji lamented. He knows how to endure, but he might be hiding his strength. This guy is not easy to deal with. They are on their home ground for the third match. If we let him take command, even with Old Cow, our chances of winning are not high. F***CK? You mean that your strategy is not even as good as his? What a piece of trash. The greatest strength of the Chuanjian team was that they could always find opportunities to attack their companions. Wuji's words were only meant to show that Uranus was resourceful and able to adapt to circumstances. In the end, the Chuanjian team quickly changed the subject and started to look down on Wuji together. Wuji was not someone who was easy to deal with. No. Wuji waved his hand and said, "The key to a team battle is the strength of the team. No matter how strong Old Cow and I are, we can't carry a bunch of idiots, don't you think so? If I have a team with the same strength, I can beat him up." F***CKU. Everyone was enraged when they heard this. Amidst the curses of the audience, Wang Yu was also teleported out of the arena. Logically speaking, Wang Yu came here to compete not only to show off his skills, but also to find a few decent opponents. However, for some reason, all the players who faced him in the past few matches did not even think about it. They either ran all over the map with tricks or directly surrendered. This made Wang Yu very bored. It was not easy to meet a slightly stronger opponent, but he was not given a chance to perform. Wang Yu felt very lonely. Not only was he invincible in real life, but he also could not find an opponent in the game. No one could understand this feeling. Fortunately, there were many god-tier bosses in the game who were not weak and would not run away. After the match, he must find a few big bosses to vent his anger on. That was what Wang Yu thought. As soon as Wang Yu thought of this, the big bosses in the game who were hiding in various forbidden areas felt their scalps go numb for no reason. After 3 matches, the motley crew temporarily led Pantheon with a score of 2-0. However, everyone also knew that the motley crew had used up their trump card. Next, it was time for them to give away points. Before the 4th match began, Wuji said earnestly, "Try not to be obsessed with fighting in the following matches. Just go up and surrender." Why? Everyone looked puzzled. Our strength has long been known by others. Do we still have to hide our strength? Look at what you said. Wuji said disdainfully. Even if you want to hide, you need to have the ability to do so. I made you surrender to hide your weaknesses, in case you get targeted in the competition. At that time, Old Cow and I will have to take care of you, trash. F***CKU. The motley crew, who were looked down upon, clenched their fist. If not for the competition, Wuji might have been beaten to death by the crowd. Chapter 1941. Of course, they still had to listen to Wuji's arrangements if they wanted to win the competition. After all, no one was willing to go against money. In terms of strength, Wuji was only average, but in terms of strategy, everyone trusted him. On Templar's side, Uranus was also patiently arranging the players for the next round. Remember, killing them is not the goal. The goal is to find out their weakness bit by bit and get rid of them from the root. Understood. Everyone from Pantheon nodded their heads. Although the motley team was not good at 1v1, they were very good at team fight. If they could not find the opponent's weakness, it would not be easy for them to kill the others even if they managed to stall Wang Yu in the last round. In the 4th round, Mingdu went up. After being teleported to the arena, Mingdu did not wait for the match to start and immediately chose to surrender. Pantheon's players did not even have time to react, and the match was over before it even started. F***CK. What the F***CK? Seeing that the 4th round was not successful, the audience could not hold it in anymore and started cursing and demanding for a refund. Whether it was a domestic or international professional league, the most important match was definitely the finals. Everyone spent so much money to buy tickets just to watch an exciting match, But in the end, these two teams were more shameless than the other, surrendering to each other. How could this even be called a match? Everyone was here to watch a fight, not to watch you guys stand there and then scram, okay? Even the judges and referees could not stand it anymore and could not help but reprimand the two teams. Don't go overboard. If you continue surrendering like this, are you still going to fight? Whoever surrenders in the next round will be declared to have lost the entire match. Lost the entire match. It seemed that the behavior of surrendering in the finals was not good. The referees actually brought out the killer weapon of the entire match. This was equivalent to nullifying the surrender command. In fact, surrendering in a match was very normal. It was just that the finals was such an important match with high viewership and attendance. Surrendering would be very disappointing. Satisfying the audience was the most important thing. Who cared if it was a strategy or not? Moreover, surrendering was the highest sportsmanship. Surrendering at the drop of a hat was not in line with sportsmanship. No problem, no problem. Under the pressure of losing the entire match, both teams had no choice but to compromise. The competition continued. In the fifth round, Wuji personally went on stage. On the Pantheon side, the archer Apollo was also an old acquaintance of Wang Yu. In fact, Apollo could no longer be considered an archer. He could only be considered an archer because he didn't use a bow or a crossbow. He was a knife thrower. In terms of weapons, there were currently 4 main categories of archers: bow, crossbow, gun, flying knife. The longbow was a traditional archer's weapon. It had high attack and average shooting speed, but it had the longest range. The crossbow was relatively small. Its firing speed and attack power were average, but its accuracy was extremely high. Guns, on the other hand, were relatively niche. Their range and accuracy were not weak, but their firing rate was relatively slow, and their mobility was far inferior to bows and crossbows. Therefore, firearms could only be used as secondary weapons in most situations. On the other hand, flying dagger was a bit more special. Players of this genre had already broken away from the category of archers and were closer to assassins. Apart from having a shorter range, it could also be supplemented with various skills for combat. Its flexibility was much higher than that of a crossbow. Archers originally added points to agility. In addition to their high flexibility and various skills, flying dagger players were a bit like a combination of archers and assassins. Under normal circumstances, flying dagger players were also known as rangers. As a support class, Wuji's combat power was not high. Fighting against a class like Ranger, which was specifically designed for PvP, was indeed a bit difficult. Wuji's combat style was still very clear. Everyone knew that this kid was good at self-destructing. As long as he pulled away from Wuji, there would basically be no problem. Although Apollo's range was not as good as an archer's, it was definitely longer than a mage's. Against Wuji, it could be considered a natural counter. In terms of battle record, Wuji was the truly amazing one. As a holy priest of a support class, he had actually not tasted defeat in a few one-on-one matches. It was one thing for Wang Yu to be invincible in one-on-one fights. After all, Wang Yu was a martial arts expert and a grandmaster. Moreover, a grandmaster of combat was also a combat class. For a support class like Wuji to be able to achieve such results in an S-rank professional league was quite terrifying. Because of this, even though Apollo's class countered Wuji's, he was still quite afraid of Wuji's self-destructing style of fighting. At the start of the match, Apollo did not say anything and immediately pulled away from Wuji. Then, he threw throwing daggers at Wuji. It was a standard kiting style. Naturally, Wuji was not the kind of person to sit and wait for death. Facing Apollo's attack, Wuji casually raised his staff and a golden light covered his body. Holy Light Shield. Clang 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 clang. When an invincible skill like Holy Light Shield was activated, it was impossible to take damage. Moreover, only an extremely high priority could slightly block it. Archers were not a class with high priority, and the throwing daggers had even lower priority. When they hit Wuji, they could not even do the most basic block. Staring at Apollo's throwing daggers, Wuji used fly and levitated towards Apollo. The city streets were just a crossroad. It was not too big. As an archer, Apollo's mobility was much higher than Wuji's, but in this small map, it was not very obvious. Moreover, Wuji was flying in the air, so it was extremely difficult for Apollo to pull away from him. In the time it took for the two to circle around each other, Wuji had already flown above Apollo. He pointed the staff in his hand and shot a white ray of light at Apollo. Martyrdom, a special skill of a priest. Its effect was similar to taunt, but it could be used in both directions. It could pull the target's attack onto oneself, and it could also be used to teleport oneself to the target's side. With a flash of light, Wuji was teleported in front of Apollo. At the same time, Wuji's body emitted a weak holy light. As expected, is he going to self-destruct again? Seeing that Wuji had once again used such a despicable skill, the audience could not help but wipe the cold sweat off their foreheads for Apollo. They had played the game for a long time, but had never seen a player who could play the self-destruct style to such perfection. Martyrdom, reckoning. These were skills that showed the fearless spirit of a priest sacrificing himself to save the world. However, in the hands of Wuji, it was simply unbearable to watch. Even the game designers who were watching the match were starting to regret designing these two skills. Boom! With a loud bang, Wuji exploded on the spot. The area within a 500-meter radius was completely empty. However, to everyone's surprise, Apollo stood in front of Wuji unscathed. How is this possible? Seeing that Apollo was not killed by Wuji's explosion, the motley crew was shocked. Chapter 1942. As everyone knew, the priest's self-destruct dealt true damage. What was true damage? True damage meant that no matter how high your defense was, whether you had invincibility skills or not, everything would be useless in the face of true damage. Apollo was just a fragile archer with a relatively low HP. It was unbelievable that he did not die after taking a blow from Wuji. He dodged it. Just when everyone was surprised, Wang Yu touched his chin and said faintly, "Dodged it? What do you mean?" Hearing Wang Yu's words, everyone was stunned. It's an archer's skill. Isn't that skill called evasion? Wang Yu turned around and asked Yang Na. Yes. Yang Na nodded. Evasion? Could it be? This time, everyone understood what he meant. Although self-destruct was a skill that could not be blocked, it could be dodged. An archer's evasion skill was an evasive invincibility skill. At the moment when Wuji self-destructed, Apollo used evasion and just happened to dodge Wuji's skill. Before understanding what was going on, everyone was just puzzled. Now that they understood what was going on, everyone's face showed a surprised expression. What the F***ck? Self-destruct was not a time bomb. At such a close distance, self-destruct would happen in an instant. To be able to dodge the self-destruct in a split second was no less difficult than dodging an incoming bullet. Although Apollo was an agility class, the main test of such a skill was his reaction speed. How strong must his reflexes be to be able to do that? The Pantheon Temple truly lived up to its name. Aside from Wang Yu and the other martial artists, none of the experts present could pull off Apollo's maneuver. Self-destruct consumed HP. After self-destruct, Wuji only had a little HP left. Apollo smiled and waved his hand. Poochie! Before Wuji could react, a flying knife had already pierced Wuji's throat. Wuji's HP bar was emptied on the spot. Humph! Seeing that Wuji was dead, Apollo couldn't help but let out a cold snort. Is this the so-called self-destruct flow? Insignificant skill. If I knew it would be so easy, I wouldn't have been so nervous. However, before Apollo could finish his sentence, a violent explosion sounded in his ears. At the same time, Apollo felt as if his body had been hollowed out. The scene before his eyes flashed, and he appeared outside the arena. Wuji was the only one left in the arena with no HP left. He stood there with a cunning smile on his face. Yeah, what the hell is going on? This time, the audience was even more surprised. Everyone had clearly seen Wuji being killed with a single slash. How did he suddenly self-destruct and kill Apollo? This didn't make sense. Could it be that there was a bug in the system? The system naturally did not want to be slandered for no reason, so it very considerately replayed the scene of the kill just now. In the slow-motion replay on the big screen, the killed Wuji was wrapped in a ball of white light. The health bar above his head was instantly restored to full, and then he self-destructed a second time. This is AF** King Resurrection? Seeing the scene on the big screen, everyone's mouths were wide open, and their faces were blank. F***CK. I didn't expect this shameless guy to have such a trick up his sleeve. When he was killed, Wuji had already marked himself with a resurrection mark. When the player resurrected, his status would be completely refreshed. At the moment of death, Wuji resurrected with full health, and immediately self-destructed a second time. Even though Apollo was well guarded, he didn't expect that there would be a double cannon for self-destruct. After figuring out how he died, Apollo felt like he had been F***ed. It was impossible to guard against. Why did this F***er have such a soft spot for self-destruct? After martyrdom and reckoning, the priest class had another skill that was tainted by Wuji. Everyone was a clergyman. Couldn't he have some feelings of saving the world? Turning all the redemption skills into a deceptive skill, such a person as a priest had no morals at all. Evil, so evil. After a long while, the audience finally came to their senses. At this time, everyone's evaluation of Wuji had been completely changed. At first, they thought that Wuji was just a shameless self-destruct priest, but now they realized that this guy wasn't shameless at all. He was King evil from the inside out. At the end of the 5th round, the motley crew scored another point, and finally won the first round with a score of 3-1. Wuji also maintained his record of 0 losses in solo battles. How shameless! Apollo was still depressed about the previous battle even after exiting the gaming cabin. It was said that experts would not be defeated by the same move twice, but as a veteran expert, one could imagine Apollo's mood after being blown up twice by such a move. Calm down, calm down. Uranus waved his hand and comforted Apollo. Everyone loses sometimes. Just be careful next time. This kind of move is a surprise attack, and once is enough. You're lucky to be blown up. How can you say that, boss? Hearing Uranus' words, Apollo was displeased. How is this comforting? This is just adding fuel to the fire. I've never seen anyone comfort someone like this. Think about it. Uranus explained calmly. After all, the first round was a solo battle. Even if someone were to die, it would only be you. If he used this move again in the last round, what do you think would happen? Apollo was suddenly speechless. Wasn't that right? The range of a priest's self-destruct wasn't small, and Wuji's HP was especially high. If he were to use a chain of self-destructs in the last round, other than the frontliners, no one else would be able to survive. Therefore, although it seemed like Wuji had won this round, he had actually exposed his trump card. It was only a gap of 2 points, but to be able to force his opponent to reveal his trump card, it was really worth it. In the lounge of the Motley Crew, the members of the Motley Crew were in a good mood. As an amateur team, to be able to achieve such a result in the first round against Pantheon was enough for them to brag about for the rest of their lives. In particular, Wuji's last attack, which caught them off guard, was regarded as a classic explosion by the wretched and shameless guys. As expected of Wuji, this level of shamelessness is definitely a role model for our generation. Yes, yes. I thought I was shameless enough. I didn't expect Wuji to be even more shameless. That's right. In terms of shamelessness, Wuji is the most shameless. Everyone in Chuanjin gave a thumbs up and praised Wuji from the bottom of their hearts. Wang Yu and his brother, who were sitting at the side, could only watch with their mouths agape. You guys from Chuanjin sure praise people in a special way. It's good to get used to it, it's good to get used to it. Wang Yu wiped his sweat. Oh right. At this moment, Wang Yu seemed to have thought of something and asked puzzledly, Wuji, didn't you say that you wanted to hide your strength? Why did you reveal your trump card so early? P.S. I caught a cold and have a fever. Chapter 1943. It's not the same. Wuji smiled indifferently. I'm giving them a target to divert their attention. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. This was a very simple principle. If everyone had no flaws, the opponent would definitely be wary of everyone in the motley gang. But now that Wuji had revealed his trump card, even if the opponent did not deliberately target Wuji, they would still be wary of Wuji and would instinctively ignore the others. The motley crowd battle team were all very smart. They naturally knew what Wuji was thinking. After the break, the second match was up. The map for the second match was chosen by the motley gang. The motley gang were not professionals, so they did not need to be shameless. Their goal was very clear, which was to win the match, so they did not care about the feelings of the audience and their opponent. The map for the second match was chosen by Wang Yu under Wuji's instructions. The old map, Lost Forest. Damn it! Seeing that the motley gang chose this map again, the audience's heart suddenly sank. According to the usual style of this group, it seemed that everyone would have to enjoy a large-scale game of hide-and-seek in the next 5 matches. The Pantheon side was also extremely helpless. Although strength was very important to the players, if the map was chosen well, it could indeed anger the experts to death. Obviously, the motley gang were such a group of scoundrels. Their combat strength was not much, but their ability to escape was more and more professional. Choosing such a large map, even a team of experts like Pantheon would have a headache. But what could they do? The use of tactics was also a part of strength. As experts, everyone understood this principle. Since the opponent was running for his life, then he would chase with his life. If he could not catch up, he could only blame himself for not being good enough. After choosing the battlefield, 2 beams of light descended from the sky. After a flash, the players of both sides appeared on the battlefield at the same time. The contestant from Pantheon was called Prometheus, a mage. However, he was different from the other mage, Zeus. Prometheus majored in fire magic, and together with Zeus and 9 provinces, 5 lakes and 4 seas, they formed the 3 elements of magic. Although Prometheus was not a standard canon mage like Mingdu, his PK ability was extremely high. In the previous match, he had defeated the number 1 expert of the 9 provinces team, 5 lakes 4 seas, in one fell swoop. One should know that 5 lakes 4 seas was an ice mage, which could restrain fire mages. To be able to defeat his opponent despite being restrained by 5 lakes 4 seas, it was clear that Prometheus was much stronger than 5 lakes 4 seas. To place one's pride was the representative of Team Motley Mob. To place one's pride was one of the luckier ones. It was rare for him to be randomly chosen in duels. However, when he was fighting against the Templar team, he was randomly chosen by a newbie. To place one's pride even managed to trick him into committing a foul and being eliminated. However, to place one's pride's performance in the first match of Team Motley Mob's debut against the Freelance team was something that everyone was looking forward to. For a Grandmaster of Combat to be able to suppress a warrior's level of control, one could see how strong he was. To place one's pride and evildoers run wilds. Wang Yu were also known as the 3 great Grandmasters of Team Motley Mob by the audience. To place one's pride went up the stage. The audience who were ready to watch a game of hide-and-seek suddenly had a glimmer of hope. After all, experts of this level still needed some phase. If they could defeat their opponent, no one would run away. Both of them were top-notch experts. The battle would definitely be exciting. Of course, Team Motley Mob was well aware of what was going on. Even if the audience couldn't tell, it didn't mean that the experts couldn't. To place one's pride's sudden outburst in that battle had long been deduced by the professional experts. To place one's pride went up the stage. Everyone from Pantheon couldn't help but feel happy. Although Grandmasters of Combat were nimble, their mobility was still far from that of archers and assassins. Moreover, Grandmasters of Combat were a class that could be used as a tank. Everyone focused on strength and vitality. Agility Grandmasters of Combat were basically useless. Because of this, to place one's pride would have a hard time escaping. With Prometheus's strength, as long as to place one's pride couldn't escape, he would win the match. As a youngster, to place one's pride was still very motivated. If it was an old dog like Chun Xiang, he would definitely compare himself to his opponent after going up the stage. If he didn't have the confidence to win, he would definitely turn and run, not giving his opponent a chance. To place one's pride, however, had to give it a try. As soon as the match started, to place one's pride stomped on the ground and charged towards Prometheus. Huh? This kid isn't running? Seeing that to place one's pride didn't turn and run, Prometheus was slightly surprised. He immediately smashed the staff in his hand onto the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, a three-headed giant flaming serpent rose from behind Prometheus. At the same time, Prometheus pointed his left hand at to place one's pride who was flying towards him. Pfft! 3 intersecting flames sprayed towards to place one's pride in unison. To place one's pride may be young, but in terms of skills, he was one of the top few in Chuanjin. It was just that his chosen profession was slightly restricted, and his mind was relatively pure, which was why he was always bullied by those animals in Chuanjin. To place one's pride already had a solid foundation, and was even personally taught by Wang Yu. Evildoers Run Wild even taught him the full set of crotch-kicking techniques, so his strength was definitely not weak. Facing the incoming flames, to place one's pride calmly rolled, dodging the flaming serpent's attack, and rolled to Prometheus's feet. Then, he launched a rising dragon fist towards Prometheus's chin. Yo! Not bad. Prometheus smiled calmly and swung his left palm. A ball of flames condensed into a long blade on his arm, and he swung it towards to place one's pride. Blazing Blade, a close combat skill of mages, able to condense flames in one's hand into various weapons to attack a target. To place one's pride reacted quickly, before the blazing blade could land on his head. He decisively cancelled the skill and dodged Prometheus' attack. At the same time, he extended his fist towards Prometheus's neck, and his fingers formed into a claw as he grabbed at Prometheus' neck. Choke! This was Wang Yu's self-created skill, able to mute the target for a certain period of time. Prometheus was a mage, and his skills were all in his mouth. As long as he could mute him, he would be able to kill more than half of him. However, at this moment, Prometheus's right hand suddenly gripped his staff, and he shouted in a low voice, "Retreat!" At the same time, a circle of raging flames spread out from Prometheus. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past, concealing Pride's ears. Immediately after, it felt as if someone had pushed him. The powerful force sent concealing Pride flying. Chapter 1944. Defying Ring of Fire. A rare fire magic that could repel all enemy units around it. For a class like a mage, the thing they feared the most was a melee class getting close to them. This Defying Ring of Fire was definitely the nemesis of melee classes. If it was a warrior, even if they couldn't get close, they could still use skills like Do Chi / to harass the opponent. But Grandmasters of Combat, especially the monk warriors, were famous for their short hands. Their skills were all about close-range grabs and stunts. A mage like Prometheus, who had the defying ring of fire skill, was the bane of grandmasters of combat. To place one's pride was also an expert. To place one's pride was able to determine who was stronger in just one round. He knew that his chances of winning were not high. If he continued to fight like this, he would be easily killed. After all, a mage's damage output was much higher than a grandmaster of combats. To place one's pride did not say anything else. He turned his head and used Bursting Fist, then ran away. A grandmaster of combat was an agile class after all. In terms of running away, they were still stronger than a mage. Although he had no confidence in winning against Prometheus, to place one's pride still had the information to shake Prometheus off. F***ck. I knew it wouldn't be that easy. To place one's pride ran away. The audience was furious. They thought that this kid would be able to make a motley crew proud. Who knew that he was such a trash? It was better to run. However, Prometheus did not panic when he saw to place one's pride running away. He waved his staff downwards and 2 balls of flames rose from the ground, wrapping around Prometheus' feet. Then, Prometheus chased after him leisurely. The audience was shocked to find that Prometheus seemed to be walking normally, but his movement speed was unbelievably fast. A light step could cover a distance of a few meters. In an instant, he had caught up to place one's pride. Extremely urgent. Fire support magic, able to greatly increase the movement speed of a target for a certain period of time. Mages were naturally skilled, so they naturally had an advantage when it came to chasing. Deity's imprisonment. To place one's pride, Prometheus smashed his staff onto the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, a tall stone monument rose from the ground, blocking the path to place one's pride. At the same time, Prometheus opened his left hand, and 5 rings of fire flew towards to place one's pride. Without waiting for to place one's pride to dodge, 5 fiery rings wrapped around to place one's pride's limbs and neck, bringing to place one's pride towards the stone tablet. Dang 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 dang. Before to place one's pride could react, the ring of fire had already turned into an iron ring and nailed to place one's pride to the stone tablet. To place one's pride, no matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. After restraining to place one's pride, Prometheus spread out his arms and summoned flames, which transformed into dozens of firehawks that swallowed to place one's pride. At this time, a line of words flashed above Prometheus' head, awakening goshawk's bite. A mage's damage output was undeniable. To place one's pride didn't have much HP to begin with. After a wave of arcane damage, to place one's pride was instantly killed. Pantheon easily won the first round. This was the difference between amateurs and top-notch professionals. This mage is quite dangerous. Glancing at Prometheus on the battlefield, Wuji frowned. A damage output class with such powerful support and control skills, this brat might be our main target in the final round. Rebirth's class division was very clear. A support class was a support class, their damage output definitely wouldn't be too high. A damage output class was a damage output class, their control and support abilities definitely wouldn't be too strong. The control class of a cannon class like a mage was an ice mage, which had always been weaker in terms of damage output. However, Prometheus was a fire mage. Not only was his damage output impressive, his support and control skills were also so strong, it was truly beyond imagination. Ignoring everything else, just that acceleration skill alone, if it was a single target skill, it would be fine. But if it was an Yoi support buff, it would definitely be a decisive factor in team battles. It would be irresponsible of him to let such a guy stay in the arena. To place one's pride was defeated. The Pillar of Light once again descended. This time the Ragtag Bunch's player was Ming Jian Daoxue. With a flash of light, Ming Jian Daoxue appeared on the battlefield. As an old dog, Ming Jian Daoxue's strength wasn't that great, but he knew his own limits, so his fighting style was naturally very conservative. As soon as he entered the battlefield, Ming Jian Daoxue immediately activated stealth and disappeared in front of Prometheus. Even to place one's pride couldn't get close to Pantheon. A person as steady as Ming Jian Daoxue naturally wouldn't try to provoke Prometheus. After entering stealth, Ming Jian Daoxue didn't think twice and activated swift movement, sprinting straight into the depths of the forest. Even though stealth was weakened, it didn't stop Ming Jian Daoxue's determination. With Ming Jian Daoxue's speed, it wasn't hard for him to escape Prometheus's field of vision while in stealth. Although Prometheus was fast, he still needed a target to catch someone. Right now, he didn't even know where Ming Jian Daoxue was, so where should he go? Moreover, the assassin class had always been the nemesis of squishy-ranged classes. In Prometheus's eyes, Ming Jian Daoxue was a player who had made it to the finals, so he should still have some integrity. Under such circumstances, Ming Jian Daoxue would definitely sneak behind him and ambush him. However, from the moment Prometheus believed in Chuanzhen's integrity, he was destined to fail. Seeing Ming Jian Daoxue disappear, Prometheus stood still and cautiously pricked up his ears, trying to hear the approaching footsteps of his opponent. 1 second, 2 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. As the seconds ticked by, Prometheus silently counted the amount of time Ming Jian Daoxue had left stealth. However, until the very last second, Ming Jian Daoxue still didn't appear. How could this guy be like this? After realizing that Ming Jian Daoxue had long since escaped, Prometheus was on the verge of tears. He never expected that an assassin who had made it to the finals would have no desire to win at all. How did he make it this far with such a mentality? While Prometheus was waiting for his opponent to attack him, Ming Jian Daoxue had already run far away. Right now, Ming Jian Daoxue didn't even know where he was, so it was impossible for Prometheus to chase after him. Left with no choice, Prometheus applied for a draw. Ming Jian Daoxue naturally knew that he couldn't defeat Prometheus, and a draw was also what Ming Jian Daoxue hoped for. Seeing that Prometheus had applied for a draw, Ming Jian Daoxue accepted without hesitation. The scene changed, and the two returned to their respective teams. For Ming Jian Daoxue, a draw was a victory, but for Prometheus, a draw with such an opponent was hard to accept. How could these guys be like this? Don't they have any competitive spirit? After leaving the stage, Prometheus was still depressed. Psychology master Uranus hurriedly comforted him. "It's all right, you'll get used to it. We didn't lose anyway, and the score is a draw." Chapter 1945. In the third round, Pantheon's player was called Poseidon, an ice mage. As a top team, Pantheon's team composition was unique. Unlike Templar, which had many holy classes, Pantheon didn't have a single holy class. Everyone focused on damage output. Even Athena, a shield warrior, leaned towards damage output. Poseidon was Pantheon's main controller. Ice mage, assassin, shield warrior. They were known as the three biggest gangsters in Rebirth. Assassin and shield warrior didn't need to be mentioned. One ambushed, the other had thick skin. They were famous for giving people headaches. As for ice mages, who were above the two, they were even more disgusting. Compared to fire mages, ice mages had lower damage output. However, control mages were still mages. Their damage output wasn't much lower than other classes. Moreover, every ice mage skill had some sort of control effect. Slow, freeze, and seal were the signature skills of ice mages. They were very powerful in both control and attack. Once an ice mage landed on you, you wouldn't be able to fight back. As such, ice mages were the top of the three main PK classes. Most mages would switch to ice mages. After all, damage output was for the rich. It was hard for normal players to find a team if they didn't graduate. However, ice mages were very easy to deal with. As such, ice mages and clerics were known as the two main beginner classes in Rebirth. They were the favorite of players who didn't have a lot of money. The many titles were enough to show the characteristics of ice mages. Motley Crowd's player was Baiming Yu. To draw two assassins in a row, Motley Crowd's luck wasn't bad. Assassins had outstanding PK and survivability. Even if they couldn't win, they could just run away. With Motley Crowd's style, they could at least tie with assassins. They were different from famous sword Daoxue. Famous sword Daoxue's skills came from his equipment. He had no advantage against players with better equipment. As a veteran of Chuanjin, famous sword Daoxue was quite thick-skinned. He could run away without any qualms. Baiming Yu was a true expert. She was quite famous in the online gaming world. Although she had fallen, she still had her pride. As a newcomer to Chuanjin, Baiming Yu still retained a trace of the dignity of an expert, and still had a desire for victory in her heart. Even if the opponent was a super expert like Poseidon, it was very difficult for Baiming Yu to turn and run like Mingjian Daoxue and surrender without a fight. As the match began, Baiming Yu's figure flickered and disappeared into thin air. Poseidon felt conflicted as he watched his opponent enter stealth. If he gave chase, he wouldn't know where to go. If he didn't give chase, he was afraid that he would be fooled like Prometheus. It couldn't be helped. In such a large map, assassins were like a bug. Even if they weakened their stealth, it would be useless. However, Poseidon was smart. Unlike Prometheus, he did not just stand there and wait. Instead, he kept moving. At the end of the day, the opponent was an assassin. He could not afford to take any chances. If he were to be stabbed in the ass from behind, wouldn't his wisdom sweep the floor? But Baiming Yu was definitely a patient person. Time ticked by. Seeing that his opponent had yet to appear, Poseidon relaxed. Poseidon had seen what Mingjian Daoxue had done in the previous match. With the Motley Crew's style, this match would not be an exception. Poseidon's movements slowed down. Baiming Yu finally made her move. Under the gaze of the audience, Baiming Yu slowly approached Poseidon. She found an opportunity to stab at Poseidon's lower back. Assassins were the same as ice mages. They were both clingy professions. When two experts faced off, it all depended on who would make the first move. Whoever made the first move would win. She won. To place one's pride clenched his fist in excitement as Baiming Yu made her move. The other members of the Quan Jin sect also revealed looks of surprise. No one expected that Baiming Yu would be able to win this round. However, Wang Yu and Wuji frowned at the same time. Just as everyone thought that Baiming Yu was about to finish off her opponent with a combo, a blue light suddenly shone from Poseidon's body. At the same time, an ice armor appeared on Poseidon's body. Clang! There was a clear sound as Baiming Yu's dagger stabbed into the ice armor. Crash! The ice armor shattered, and Baiming Yu staggered back a few steps from the impact. After one round of exchange, the two people in the arena immediately revealed surprised and bewildered looks. Baiming Yu knew that her attack power was not weak. She had even used the assassin's main damage output skill, Backstab. Even a tank would feel pain after taking a hit, let alone an ice armor. However, Poseidon's ice armor had completely nullified her attack. How F*King proficient was this person? Poseidon was also shocked. He was quite confident in the defense of his ice armor. He did not expect it to be broken by a single stab. This assassin's technique aside, his attack power was comparable to the top experts of Pantheon. In the arena, the assassin was the active side while the mage was the passive side while the assassin was the active side. After the stealth effect ended, the roles of the two would quickly switch. Poseidon was worried about not being able to find his target. When he turned around and saw Baiming Yu, he was overjoyed. He raised his staff and threw a string of icicles at Baiming Yu. A wretched profession like the assassin would never fight head-on with an opponent. If an attack failed, they would retreat. This was the basic rule of the assassin. Now that stealth was on cooldown, Baiming Yu had to wait for a while before she could turn invisible. Seeing that Poseidon was attacking her, Baiming Yu dove into the ground without a word. Earth escape. Humph. Trying to run? Baiming Yoyu had used Earth escape more than once. Poseidon naturally knew what she wanted to do. He snorted coldly and calmly pointed the staff in his hand at the ground. Walala! Blue ice elements spread in all directions, and the ground instantly froze into ice. A line of words flashed in Poseidon's head: profound, 1,000 miles of ice. The 1,000 miles of ice was a large-scale control skill, but it had a special effect on Baiming Yoyu in this situation. Baiming Yoyu's Earth escape could only move through the ground, not through ice. Boom! With a dull thud, Baiming Yoyu's head hit the ice. Baiming Yoyu reacted quickly. After hitting the ground, she rolled on the ground and got up to run. Poseidon raised his left hand and clenched his fist. He shouted, "Rise! Hong long long long!" Under Poseidon's control, the ice on the ground was lifted and swept towards Poseidon from all directions. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.